Hello, this is Theron from Bricks and Flicks. So we got a Mech Armor Monday crossover with my normal Bricks and Flicks because today we're going through and making the Iron Monger Mayhem Lego set. And since that is specifically Iron Man the movie, we are actually going to be discussing Iron Man the movie with my guests. I've got Caermon up above, and I have HTPB, my brother Todd, down below. And I always have problems with that, Todd. Todd is a rocket scientist, actually, and well, ish.
Yeah.
And Caermon, since it's the first time you're on the stream, tell us about yourself and what you got going on.
Well, I always hate telling people about myself, but I guess the most important thing I got going on right now is my writing. I am currently the author of 2 novellas that are on Amazon. You can find them under Caermon and I'm working on a 3rd.
And the
I
3rd
can
will
hear
be
myself.
the 3rd will be done when I finish the cover, or are you done with it?
I will probably do a run through again to edit the 3rd one, but so that's why I'm not pushing you too hard to finish the cover because I want to do that, but I'm waiting a little bit. I did a run through about 2 weeks ago, and I want to get it out of my mind for a bit before I do the final run through. So
fair enough.
And I've been working on the one after that, so I want to make sure that it ties in pretty nicely. So, but again, you can find them on Amazon under Caermon Durgay.
Sounds good. All right. Well, because this particular build is 479 pieces, and I'm trying not to make this last the same as our Batman, which was 4 hours, I'm going to give most of the duties to my brother Todd to keep us on track for our topic, and as the movie moves along, we'll be able to talk about it. And that way, I'm not going to be the losing my focus on the Lego itself. So, Todd, let's start us off. I got my Iron Man shirt on. Let's start off and see where the Iron Man leads us.
All right. Well, pending any discussions that lead into a thread about character development or something that takes us off a timeline, we can start with how the movie opens up. You're basically transported over into Afghanistan, and you're watching a convoy of Humvees going across the desert. And inside it is Tony Stark in a suit and a bunch of soldiers, and it's all kind of awkward. And he's trying to get the soldiers to open up as they're hanging out in the Humvee. And that's pretty much all you know about what's going on as it starts. As far
Airmen. They're airmen, not soldiers.
Yes.
So that was important. That was important to me.
Yes. Well, interestingly, I mean, military background. In Afghanistan, they had a lot of individual augmentees, which were other servicemen and women who went to fill a whole bunch of spots that were over there because many of the positions need to be filled that couldn't be filled with Army units, some because they had a different MOS or they had a different a job than was needed specifically. So they used all the services. So you had maybe a chief petty officer from the Navy was a or not a door gunner, but a top gunner on a Humvee. Mm-hmm. And I went over there into Afghanistan, and I was an electronic warfare officer that worked with jamming IEDs from going off. And I was in the Navy. So they were airmen. And I guess what was significant about why they were airmen in this particular scene is they had just had an Air Force demonstration of Tony's latest weapons, which we'll get to later, because there's a like 36 hours prior to you seeing the scene, this is what happened that led up to the scene. So that's a little bit of a jump ahead from what's going to happen with the rest of the progression of the movie. But when we start out, we have no idea what's going on, but these airmen are in there and he's trying to strike up a conversation with the airmen. Anything about the banter back and forth, Paul, that you thought was interesting?
Typical. I can see those airmen reacting in exactly that way with someone who they consider a celebrity, because that's what Tony Stark is, especially to the military. He's a celebrity. Here's the guy that provides them, with the ironmongery that they're using over there, and if you know anything about Tony Stark going into the movie, if you were a fan of the comics, you know who Tony is. He is the playboy, celebrity that everybody wants to be when they grow up, in spite of the fact that he isn't really.
Well, not only isn't he really that, but he's to start with, you can kind of see he's a narcissist, and a charming one, maybe.
Oh yeah.
At least enough to he got the airmen to lighten up a little bit, but still quite an arrogant ass.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when he comments, "Oh God, you're a woman. I didn't even realize that." She said, "Airman, sir." So it's like, yeah, I guess that's what you want to be, is just a nondescript soldier, or in this case, airman.
Yep. Well, and the thing, I always imagined that they were Air Force cops, because I know that a lot of Air Force cops had that kind of security duty over there.
And why do you know that?
Because I used to be one once upon a time, and I
There we go.
kind of still still follow things. But that kind of tickled me. The fact that they were probably Air Force security police. I don't know if they changed over to security forces by that time, but yeah, still Air Force cops. Probably real Air Force cops would have been a little looser, because we were never really sticklers for all the rules. It was one of the things that made us so difficult to find, is that we were never where we were supposed to be. But yeah, it would have thrilled them to no end, him being there. And, you never know how to react to a celebrity. They can be, real swell people, like Tony turns out to be in the Fun V, but or they can be real, pardon the expression, dicks. So and there he is with his glass of scotch, as they're tooling around, and he's just enjoying the hell out of himself.
So I suppose that's the reason why Jimmy, who Stark calls Forrest because he basically wasn't talking, and that's probably the reason why Jimmy was apprehensive about whether or not he should be talking to him or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Since you said whether or not it's a celebrity or not, you don't know how they're going to react, so that makes sense.
Yep.
All right. So unless someone prompts me to do it, I don't want to pick apart the how wrong the military reaction to Humvee being blown up is. We'll just say that it's intense, and it's not exactly the way it was portrayed in the movie, but I think it set the tone for the fact that it was Indian country over there, and it was wild sometimes, and things happen pretty fast. So I guess that flavor came across, whether or not they were 100% accurate in the way they depicted the way things happen is still okay.
Yeah.
So moving on, then we have a Humvee, the lead Humvee of the line of Humvees, gets blown up either from an RPG or a rocket or an IED. They don't really tell you what it was, but everybody comes to a stop. They're under fire, so they've got contact left or something like that, where they're taking small arms fire after the initial explosion, which is a tactic that a lot of the insurgents over in Afghanistan would do. First, they'd stop the vehicles with an explosion, and then they would try and take them out with small arms fire. So while that's happening, everyone in the vehicle pours out to do their duty and leaves Stark behind and says, "Stay here, Mr. Stark." And they all go outside, and incoming fire and explosions pepper the vehicle, and it takes out all the military personnel and just leaves Tony sitting there wondering whether he ought to stay in the Humvee or not.
Which, doesn't that kind of surprise you that the holes that were left in the door of the Humvee, that none of the shrapnel from that hit Tony at that point? It wasn't a story to do that, but I mean,
well, a large part of the velocity of those fragments probably were absorbed by poking holes in the door. You'd be surprised how much it turns it into a makeshift screen door really fast, and you might survive it. I mean, RPGs could go off next to somebody. If he's lucky enough for the blast pattern, could take out everybody in the whole room except him. And he's like, "I can't believe I didn't get hit." You don't know for sure. It's not perfect spread pattern, but we do find out when Tony leaves the vehicle and he hides by the rock that they are using some high-end weapons, and some of them are from Stark Industries. So the fact that the Humvee got torn into paper shreds when the shrapnel hit it could be explained away that they were hit by the most technologically advanced weapons they could get because they were Stark weapons. Whether or not Tony got hit by any of that shrapnel the first time depends on which direction the round hit and where the shrapnel went, whether he was in the line of fire of the shrapnel.
He got, if I remember, the biggest wounds he had were on his right side.
Yes, once he was outside of the vehicle, hiding by the rock, and the grenade hits near him and it goes off, he's blasted backwards, and he's looking around, and he quite obviously has some pretty high-tech flak jacket on that looks very technical as far as flak jackets go. I haven't seen anything that looks like that. So he's probably got the best of the best Stark Industries body armor on, and he starts bleeding through the armor anyway, which is an indication that the lethality of the round was more lethal than what he had to protect him with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay. There's actually one piece right before that, when right before they got hit, when the kid asked, when Jimmy asked to take a picture with him, when he puts up the peace sign, and
no gang signs, please.
What's that?
No gang signs, please.
No gang signs, please. Yes.
go ahead, throw it up. If there was peace, I wouldn't be doing the job.
Yep. And he said, "I love peace. I'd be out of a job, but with peace. But I love peace." I thought that was funny that he was actually making fun of the fact that with peace he has no real income.
Well, I think in the moment when he was saying those things to the airmen, he was using his little quips that he uses that are his memorized one-liners on how he deals with the real world. Because it seems like we'll talk about this more later, but he's the misunderstood genius kid that has no peers. I mean, he goes through the accolades later on at the awards ceremony that we're going to see that he really didn't have anyone that he could talk to, relate to, or anything. And most people thought he was a goofball or a playboy who had plenty of money. He was rich. He had all the girls he wanted. He didn't have to worry about very much. And yet he didn't have anyone that he could relate to or talk to. So he had this persona, and he puts up little sayings like, "Oh yeah, peace. Okay, good. Yeah, if there was peace, I wouldn't have a job, but whatever." And it's kind of flippant and kind of like it covers the way he really feels, or he hasn't really embraced reality per se yet, because it's not fair, but he hasn't had the ability to embrace reality yet, because he doesn't know how to deal with the real world as far as you and I would be able to. He's more of a, these people don't get me. I have to go to these stupid awards ceremonies and I have to go to these show and tell things where I show off my weapons, and it's all a joke to them because they don't really need them there. They just want the weapons. They don't really care. And he flippantly he'll have booze in the Humvee, drinking booze while they're going down there. So he obviously thinks that rules are for fools or something. I don't know. But so the line that he gives, yeah, peace, it seems to be it's one of his rehearsed lines that he rehearses in front of the mirror, like we hear later on when he's talking with Christine, the reporter.
Jen, my wife's take on it is he seems to be a high functioning sociopath, very much like Sherlock Holmes, not really understanding how to interact with people and not really empathizing with what their needs are, just analyzing the situation and doing what he is focused on. Because he's also compulsive, but he just doesn't care about anybody. It seems like at the beginning of this, at least, and his arc doesn't really change a whole lot as far as the high functioning sociopath goes. But I kind of agree with what she said because she actually described it to me exactly how much he was like Sherlock Holmes.
I was actually thinking that myself. That thought crossed my head. That yeah, the whole high functioning, the whole sociopath thing, because he's never been, up until this point, he's never been called out for anything, because he is a genius and he creates all these technological marvels. People let him get away with anything. I mean, the only one, well, there's only one person who really calls him out, but we'll see that later on in the film. But other than that, nobody takes him to task for anything that he does.
Yeah,
Yep.
so when she gave me that as a take, I'm like, wow, all right, that's perfect. Thank you. I'll add that in.
All right, so we jump back magically to 36 hours prior to that, and now we're going to see how the story led up to that moment, apparently. And it starts out with the big video presentation, kind of like the Stark Symposium kinds of videos that says, here is Tony Stark. He was born a genius, and he was a genius his whole life, and he developed these awesome weapons, and he took over the legacy of Stark Industries from Howard Stark, and built his first motorcycle when he was like 4 years old, things like that. And his parents were killed, the falling of a Titan, Howard Stark left it to him, and Obadiah Stane takes over the reins and until the little boy becomes a man and can take it over himself. And then so now Tony's the greatest purveyor of most awesome weapons and technology of the world. And here he is, Tony Stark. Cricket, 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 you know. And so Obadiah Stane, who's quite used to this kind of behavior, even though Rhodey seemed like he actually thought he was going to come to this one for some reason, Obadiah Stane comes up and he's basically like, okay, I'm obviously not Tony Stark, but if I was, I'd say how much I like this, and the thing. So here's a good insight into Tony's character from Obadiah Stane. Is the worst thing about Tony is he's always working. The worst thing and the best thing about him is he's always working. So I'm sure he's doing something really hardcore right now, working. And then it cuts to him at the craps table playing craps, working at the craps table. So the fact that Obadiah Stane gave a good reveal there is the best thing about him, and the worst thing about him is that he's always working. So when he has a project, I mean, all through this movie and all through the accolades that they gave at the award ceremony, it seems that he comes up with all these great advances in technology or amazing feats for someone his age. But he probably did that in like a 7-day period or 2 days or one day. He just didn't stop. It was kind of like, I don't know if it was Thomas Edison or somebody, one of those guys, they like put a quarter on a table or something and they'd take a nap. And as soon as a quarter fell, they'd wake up and they'd go back to work. And that's all the sleep they ever got. There's some high functioning people that they just are always going. And so when Tony ends up breaking loose or cutting loose to do something like this craps table shoot, that's the way he unloads all of that stress and angst and not fitting in with the world, because he just works, and then he has no venting. So that's why there's persona, the playboy persona, and the reckless, carefree, gets all the girls he wants, has all the money he could possibly spend. He doesn't care, lose a couple thousand here. Oh, that we're no problem. Cash me out. I don't care. So good insight there from Obadiah Stane to give us an idea that the best and the worst thing about Tony is the fact that he's a nonstop inventor that doesn't stop thinking and figuring things out.
So that's interesting. So I guess part of his personality might actually also be manic. If he's work, and then has to play, and then work, has to play, that would make a lot of sense too.
Yeah, absolutely he is. I mean, there's time hacks in here when there's like it's been what, 11 days. He makes the entire Iron Man outfit 11 days after he got back from being in a cave. That's like nonstop engineering. He does have Jarvis helping, and he's got some pretty high-tech manufacturing facility that can poop out a Mark III suit in 5 hours and paint it. That's pretty cool.
I love his operating system where you get the 3D image and you can spin it around and take it apart and throw pieces in the simulated garbage. I love that. I would kill to have that operating system.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for Apple to come out with something like that.
It's
Right.
really, it's no longer science fiction, because the thing which interprets the points even on gaming systems into a 3D map so that everything's in perspective no matter how you look at it, it's just matrix conversion math, and it's just applying some simple multiplication across matrices and transforming this frame of view over here into, let's pretend I'm on this and now I'm watching the world go by instead. It's just very quick filters that does that. Our computing is so fast that now there's going to be kids programming in 6th grade who develop their own 3D imaging thing like that. It's possible. The thing is the projector and the medium that you're looking at it in. If you had like multiple projectors that do like a pseudo hologram projection, it's very easy for a computer nowadays to have a microprocessor that's doing nothing but the graphics, and the computations are being done on a dual core high-end computer. So I bet that within a couple of years of Hollywood showing these cool displays like Minority Report with Tom Cruise and stuff, where you've got all the stuff and you take a file and you throw it away and you move this over and I like that and let's paste this over here, with a fiber optic glove or something that's tracking your hand position like a Wii controller for a video game. You can probably, within a couple of years, it's going to be pretty common to see that kind of display. But it is neat to watch. I mean, it's really cool how they added the sci-fi, not sci-fi, but I don't know, engineering fiction into the movie. Because I mean, look at the James Bond movies, like one of the Under Majesty's Secret Service. The guy brings a full-on Xerox machine up to the balcony using a crane, and he takes some documents and makes mimeograph copies of stuff. And that's 1968. Do you think people had video copy machines in 1968? I mean, even in the early 80s, they were still using mimeograph machines and running ink rollers to make copies, But Hollywood
the smell of those copies.
Hollywood gets the greatest tech that's out there and says, look, this is the future. And it's only 10 years out because they haven't marketed it to everybody yet. All right, so where are we at? Okay, so say again.
He, I believe he just got the award. So I think Rhodey's about to hand in the award at the craps table.
Yep. So you're going to cut this into every millisecond of the whole movie. I hope
Don't
we can
have
make
to.
it.
No.
No, that's
but
okay.
you can see Rhodey's how he's disappointed.
His disdain. Yeah.
Yes. His disappointment is all throughout the movie. We could talk about that, I guess, if you want to pull it forward a little bit. It seems that I think that he has contempt for Tony's lack of apparent responsibility, like disrespect for being punctual. When you got people that are counting you to be somewhere and you don't show up there in the military, if you're on time, you're late. You know,
Yep.
early's on time and on time is late. And Rhodey's a successful lieutenant colonel. You know, he's been around, he's paid his dues, he's worked his way up. And when you have a complete blatant disregard for the rules, it starts to piss him off. And some of that might be that it's kind of not fair to him in his mind that he's got all these responsibilities and things that he does, and he has none of the toys that Tony has. Tony just things come naturally to him all the time, and I'm sure that's part of it. But maybe Rhodey feels cheated a little bit because Tony's got it and he doesn't. I don't know. But obviously, it makes him mad that he wasn't there for the award because he told Rhodey that he would be there, and that made him mad as well. And then when he's like, "Well, I'm rolling these craps. You gonna blow on this, or are you gonna get over your butt hurtness, or are you gonna blow on these dice?" And he goes, "I don't want to blow on it." And he makes him throw the dice, and the dice come up craps, and he loses a bunch of money, a ton of money. And he's like, "Oh well, worse things have happened. Go ahead and cash me out." You know. Meanwhile, Rhodey's still probably steaming about it. Yeah, there's fun. Go ahead.
There's a bit of jealous. I'm going to say there's probably some jealousy in there because, you know, like you said, Rhodey has come up through the ranks. He got to where he got to by following the rules. You don't become a lieutenant colonel by being a maverick, you know, unless you are the best at your job. And even though he probably is, when you've got somebody like Tony Stark, they're operating on a whole different level. And like you said, things come so easy to Tony. And, you know, Rhodey's probably, I mean, first of all, he's, you know, even though the military is supposed to be, you know, equal opportunity for all, he's still a black dude. And, you know, in his youth, he probably had to work twice as hard just to get half as far. And then you got Tony, who everything just comes easy. Ideas, money, women.
Yeah.
You know, you lose a bunch of money, you know, several $1,000s at the craps table. Yeah, the heck with it. Let's go do something.
Well, I'm not convinced that Rhodey's character has a development timeline as far as why he gets any better, but he goes from angry and pissed off and butthurt Rhodey to eventually finally coming to a point later in the movie where he's on Tony's side and he gets it. He understands Tony, at least for what Tony's been doing, and he finally understands. So the thing he doesn't understand is what comes easy to Tony doesn't come easy to Tony. You don't understand that when he's doing his thruster boots and let's try 10% and bam, and he like slams into a wall and he's like got ice packs and he's got little circle marks on his neck from where his armor wouldn't come off, and he's being peeled apart by a whole bunch of robotic arms to get his armor taken off and stuff. He doesn't see that. All he sees is the thing putting on the Mark III suit onto him all buttoned up, and he's like, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." Well, it didn't jump from Tony's brain to the coolest thing you ever seen. There was like icing problems. There was getting back out of the uniform problems. There was like getting hit in the face with a shell from a tank problems. You know, you see the finished product and you're like, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." It's like, do you really think that?
Fire extinguisher.
I think it's definitely Rhodey's short-sightedness that he's as butthurt as he is because he thinks it comes easy for Tony, but I don't think it comes easy for Tony at all.
That's
Well,
really
you never see the sweat. You know, we see it.
Yeah,
but Rhodey doesn't. You know, the only person that sees the sweat is again Pepper.
Well, I guarantee that Rhodey's I don't know. I'm going to talk about the Air Force. So defend the Air Force if you want to. But an 18-hour day is a typical day in theater, and that's a long day.
Mhm.
But sometimes when you're underway in the Navy, you're awake 3 days straight and you don't even get a nap in your pit. So you're like having these I just had a micro nap just then,
Yeah.
because you're out cold. And that's the way Tony is. Tony works 3 days straight without sleep, So as much as Rhodey thinks that, I don't know, maybe Tony puts in a lot of hours, but I don't think he gets it. Tony's
No.
driven until it's finished.
And you can know something intellectually without knowing it emotionally, too. And maybe Rhodey at some level understands that Tony works really hard, but he doesn't get it in here because he never sees it. He, like you said, he sees the Mark III armor and it's the coolest thing since sliced bread for him. And he doesn't see the blood, sweat, and tears, probably literally all three, that Tony put into getting that thing together.
Well,
and he doesn't see it afterwards.
Yeah, it does come up later, so I don't want to spoil the analysis of the scene when it gets there. But another piece of it is Rhodey, although you don't see it unless you watch it 3 or 4 times in the movie, then you kind of see it, and I'll tell you about it when it gets there. But Rhodey sees the potential that Tony could do within his own framework of what that potential could realize into. So even though he's missing what Tony is and what Tony does, he sees potential in Tony that could put him in a place that he does understand, and he's not seeing Tony go there, and it's kind of frustrating for him.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I don't want to skip over Christine
No,
because
we don't want to skip over Christine because there's a funny line that goes with that as the that happened shortly after her. So actually, there's 2 funny lines.
all right. So I don't know where I skipped the.
Well, Christine shows up right after he gives the award to the guy dressed like Caesar on their way.
Caesar.
Yeah.
And I want to say Hogan, he looks good as Hogan in this particular movie. He looks competent. He's got a chiseled jaw, and so Happy Hogan actually looked like he was somewhat competent, even though that in the comics he actually had a tendency to lose most of his fights. It looked like he was a competent bodyguard.
Well, Tony used him as a clearance for whether the girl was hot enough to talk to, because while he's sitting there, she goes, "Tony, can I have some questions or whatever?" And he looks at her. Is she all right? She's okay. Okay, and then he decides to talk to her because he already was vetted. His bodyguard vetted him that it was okay to talk to this because she's a hottie. So Christine ends up talking to Tony, asking him some questions. Let's see. It starts out where she's kind of hostile. It's not as hostile as she becomes later in the movie, but she's kind of asking him about how he feels about his technology of death being spread all over the world and stuff. And he kind of gives you all of his quippy Tony remarks about, yeah, but because of all this military research, we got all these medical advances, we got IntelliCrops, we got all these good things too. I mean, you're just going to discount that, even though we have the most lethal stuff out there and everyone's getting it, and he was still in the naive phase where he didn't know his stuff was being given to the bad guys. He was still in the rose-colored stained glass windows world where all the good guys were getting the good toys, and that's why we were winning this war against chaos in the world, is because the good guys were getting all the toys. So they have some back and forth, and every time Christine tries to ask him a serious question, he kind of gets back to it. Well, I'd like to show you personally in my room. And she's like, no, I really want to ask you this question. He goes, well, I really want to nudge you in the morning and see if you like coffee or tea in the morning. And so they end up having this wild night where it rolls off the bed onto the floor.
I don't recall if you said she's from Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
So I guess my question would be, when she comes back later and gives him more information, um, how does she become so knowledgeable about what's going on? So I'm thinking she's a better reporter than Vanity Fair. She just
Yeah.
is stuck at Vanity Fair and really wants to progress and become a better reporter. So I'm thinking that she's got some contacts in a couple different places, because it just doesn't make any sense otherwise that Vanity Fair reporter would be that vested, have that much invested
And
interest in
the kind of
weapons.
questions she's asking aren't the kind of thing that Vanity Fair usually gets into.
Right.
Vanity Fair does puff pieces. They would do the kind of piece that you saw on the video display when they were talking about Tony before giving him the award. That's what Vanity Fair does. So, yeah, you're right. It's kind of obvious that she wants to be something more as a reporter, which is why she's asking him those kind of questions.
It could very well be that an investigative reporter actually does her homework, is only going to be able to get a job in the Vanity Fair magazine, because the actual news has their own agenda, no matter whether you're on the left or the right, and they've got the stories that they want to cover, and they've got the ones that the connected people don't turn off, so that doesn't actually make it to the air. You can slide in a really good investigative piece into a magazine that maybe only has one or two interesting articles in the entire magazine each time it's published. So maybe, but that's good too. All right, so they have a romp, and the next thing that happens is she's waking up on a bed in the middle of the morning, and she's getting the weather report from Jarvis as the windows untint. She realizes, here I am in Tony Stark's awesome Playboy mansion in Malibu, and I'm being talked to by some voice, um, and she's trying to figure out what's going on and which way's up, and she obviously doesn't have her clothes. She's walking around in a shirt, which is fine.
Yeah.
As mornings go, hey, the shirt's fine. So, um, so other than her deciding to be rather inquisitive and touching a wall panel to see what's behind door number 2, and gets told by Jarvis says, no, you're not authorized to go in that room. Here we get Pepper Potts shows up, and she goes, oh, that's Jarvis. He basically watches over the house, and he's a security. And here's your dry cleaning. I had it clean because you're obviously without any attire, and we'll get someone to give you a ride home anytime you want.
And then she says, so all these years of working for Tony, and he's got you picking up the dry cleaning? And her line, which
Yeah.
is quite cool for Pepper, I do anything and everything that Mr. Stark requires, including, occasionally, taking out the trash. That was a very good line. Will that be
Yeah.
all?
Yeah, I think that it would be a really exciting conversation to try and have a witty back and forth with the character of Pepper Potts as portrayed in this movie, because she is fast, she's quick, she's got witty comebacks, and you'd have to say, that was a good line, you got me, There's not too many of her lines you can come back with a snappy comeback to make it go back in her face. She seems to be quite smart on her toes. All right, let me see.
So Pepper walks downstairs and confronts Tony, and Tony asks how she took it. And Pepper says she took it fine. So basically, it comes right back down to Tony not really having too much empathy or giving a shit about anybody, and comes back to the sociopath portion. It's like, I don't really care, but I'm going to ask just because I'm interested in what Pepper thinks. Not that I give a crap what the girl thought about being kicked out of my house, but it was. I thought it was interesting that he actually did ask as far as Pepper goes. So how'd she take it about getting kicked out?
Well, it's another example of how he's repressed in the fact that he really likes the way he's being nurtured by Pepper, but he doesn't want to look at the fact that it's kind of a slap in her face that he's sleeping around with girls right in front of Pepper, and Pepper has to take out the trash, and Pepper's kind of quietly going, "That's Tony," but she obviously has feelings enough for him to be empathetic to his what he actually cares about, because the art collection and there's some other things I took notes on later. I may come across it, but the empathy's there, and Pepper's kind of like the nurturing, takes care of Tony. And later we see what's your social security number? He's like five. And he's like, what about the other 8 digits? He goes, I've got you for the other 8 digits. And that is kind of like already going on in this scene, because she's obviously managing, or yeah, I guess managing is a good word. Managing the Playboy, who's still kind of doing Playboy things.
Yeah, she's babysitting.
Yeah, yeah. Not that it's too hard of a job. I mean, she's got probably a fancier car that she drives around in than 0.1% of the population of America. So it's not like she's exactly hating it. So she comes in and she tells Tony that you're basically way late. Not only late, but you're supposed to be on a flight to Afghanistan. And where are you? And oh yeah, we got this graduation ceremony that you're supposed to talk at, and all these other things. And Tony's like, stop, stop, stop. That's all. That's stuff that doesn't bother me. I don't care. But she does convince him that he's got to get on this plane and leave, even though all these other administrative tasks are brushed off. They do talk about um, Pollock art piece, and said, what do you think about this? And he's like, well, it's way overpriced. He goes, I want it, buy it, put it in storage, some of that. So I think that's kind of Tony's real true um, aesthetic, lover of aesthetic things leaking through, even though he still kind of plays it off like it's a Playboy thing. Cause I think he really does think that the art's important and art appreciation is important, but he hides it behind his Playboy. Yeah, whatever, buy it. I want it because it's expensive and every other person wants it. Buy it anyway.
Even though it's overpriced.
Well, because it's overpriced. That's
because
why he
it's
wants
overpriced and someone else wants it. He's like, I don't care if it's overpriced, get it anyway. I've got the money. So, all right. So he races Happy to the airport as kids who are seeing who can get down the street fastest on their bikes, kind of thing. And I thought I lost you back there. No, I took a shortcut down Mulholland or whatever.
Mulholland,
They both come tearing up in their hot rods. Well, the limo's probably not too shabby as limos go that Happy's driving, but Stark comes in like Stark 4, which probably has a hydrogen reactor in it or something crazy like that.
It's an actual Audi. I forget what model it is, but it is an actual Audi. Even with the window that you can see the engine through in the back there, that is an actual vehicle. Forget, well, like I said, forget what model it is, but it is an actual car. That's one of the things I liked about the whole Iron Man series, is that he drives actual vehicles that you could, if you were rich enough, buy. Including, I think, in one movie, he drives a Tesla. But yeah, they come speeding up, like you said, like 2 kids racing on their bikes, and then Tony is getting into the plane and getting yelled at by Rhodey.
Yeah, for making him wait for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when he said, quote, oh crap, hold on. It says, I got caught doing a piece for Vanity Fair.
From Vanity Fair.
Now, he could have said from Vanity Fair, but he did say for, so, but I'm sure that those 2 words could have easily, been interchanged.
All right, so they decide to take off, and they're in the airplane, and obviously Rhodey's a little uptight still, and uh, Tony's his frivolous self, just wanting to have some sake or some champagne and dancing girls, and with a pole in the middle of the plane for pole dancing girls. And um, something that struck me interesting about that scene is, did you guys notice the Stark family crest on the wall of the plane?
Mm-mm.
No.
So the screen pixelated while we were watching it through Disney, and and it pixelated and froze, and we're sitting here staring at the Stark family crest on the wall of the airplane because it froze. If it hadn't frozen, we probably wouldn't even realize it was there. But it's a really interesting shield that has the word Stark on it, and it has, instead of the two crossed eagle heads with the wings like you'd see in some sort of a German or Austrian coat of arms or something, it
Yeah.
looks like they're doves. So if you ever want to go back and look at that scene, they look like it's two doves of peace, not the doves of peace clutching the, I don't know what, olive branches or something like that. But if that's the case, that's kind of cynical and funny that the merchants of death that created the A bomb and the Manhattan Project and all these weapons have a family crest that have two doves of peace on it.
That is
So
interesting.
it's worth looking at. I could be mistaken, but it certainly looked like doves to me. So I thought that was funny. So meanwhile, Tony's trying to break down Rhodey's butthurtness from him being late and saying, "No, I'm not drinking. No, I'm not drinking. No, I'm not drinking." And then the obvious funny is here they are drinking, and they're already quite well into it. Uh, this is a part where if you pay attention to what Rhodey's saying, he's actually trying to egg Tony on to be a better person and to meet his potential. But you don't, at first when I saw it, I thought it was him going like, man, I go to all these things and I train hard and I do all this stuff. And I thought he was complaining about his lot in life compared to how easy Tony has it. But I went back and I watched and I listened to what he was saying. He's like, man, you got the potential. You know, you can do all this stuff. And he's busy talking to the girls, so he's not even really listening to this pep talk. But it seemed like Brody really actually cared about him, and it slipped through that he wasn't mad anymore. He just cared about him. Once he was so drunk, he got past the, once you're drunk, you're like an amplification of your true self. And I guess Rhodey really does care for Tony. So, all right. Do we want
Yeah,
to move on to the,
it's kind of obvious throughout the film. I'm sorry, Toon. Kind of obvious throughout the film that he does really care about Tony, and that makes it, you know, in Rhodey's eyes, all that much worse when Tony does something stupid.
yeah.
So
Well, the next triggers for that are coming up, but he does enough things that makes Rhodey mad that he's in a perpetual state of butthurtness until the end of the movie.
mm-hmm.
So they get to this demonstration, and here we have Tony, who's been drinking on a 13-hour flight to Afghanistan because they didn't have afterburning engines on that Learjet. As cool as the jet looked, it probably took him 13 hours to get there. And he's dressed in his suit. He doesn't apparently be slurring any of his words because of his drinking the whole way over. But he's like, so I present to you this new weapon system. Why do you want to shoot a weapon that you have to fire multiple times? How about one you only have to fire once? That's the way Dad did it. That's the way America does it, you know. And so he gives a whole patriotic Stark Symposium video spiel. And he goes, I present to you the Jericho missile. And then the shockwave comes and knocks everybody's hats off, and they're all duly impressed. And he breaks out the bubbly and he celebrates. And he goes, if you every
5
500
million.
million, something like some crazy number like 500 million, every 500 million, I'll throw one of these in for you guys too. And he starts drinking in front of him, which is funny because in the Middle East, you're not supposed to be drinking, even though they whether they say they do it or not, they probably actually do. But you can get in trouble as American soldiers over there drinking
Well, you
booze.
wouldn't do it in front of, apparently, and there are some, you know, soldiers, I guess, Afghan soldiers, higher ups, officers there. So yeah, you wouldn't want to do it in front of the officers, even though they probably, knock back a few with the American officers when they're at the in the BOQ. So
Yeah. But they don't publicly recognize that they do that. It's a sin against their faith for the most part over there, and so there's no booze and drunkenness over there supposedly. So they have this successful demonstration. Everything's going well, and Tony says, "All right, well," he gets a phone call from Obadiah, and he goes like, "What are you doing? Calling me? Or you're sleeping or something?" And he goes, "I had to know how it went, Tony. How did it go?" And he goes, "It's going to be an early Christmas. I think we nailed it." And he's like, "Awesome, awesome. I'll see you tomorrow." And then he gets into the Humvee. So now we can maybe look
good
out.
Obadiah, by the way.
What's that?
You do a good Obadiah.
Thanks.
That sounded, yeah. Sounded right on.
Tony. Anyway, so let's step outside the timeline just for a second because of things that we know because of the whole movie. At this point, we know some things have happened that are going to make the next few moments of the movie occur. Anyone want to pick apart any of that, or do you want me to suggest some things and see what you think?
Go ahead and suggest them.
All right. So clearly, being 13-hour time difference, some Stark weaponry, which is going to be used that blows shrapnel through Tony's vest, has already been delivered to an ambush site. The hit's already been ordered. We find out later who orders it. And everything's in motion for that ambush, that roadside ambush to take place. And meanwhile, we're having this phone conversation with Obadiah Stane saying, "Why are you calling me? Just wanted to see how it went, Tony. Did you save me any of that booze you're drinking," kind of thing. And he goes, "I'll see you tomorrow." And then he hangs up, and he's like, the insidiousness of Obadiah Stane being in his boxer shorts, sleeping and going, "Yeah, see you tomorrow." Probably not,
Mm-hmm.
It shows how callous and cold Obadiah Stane is when you find out what happens later, and he probably just verified the timing so that he could give some other guys a call back and say, "Here comes your convoy," just so you're ready for it.
Yeah. Well, Obadiah Stane was for a long period of time, he was the CEO of Stark Industries. And, speaking of sociopaths, you pretty much have to be one in order to rise to that level of that big a company. And probably not happy that, Tony just stepped in and took over the job.
Well, with our after the movie's completion knowledge coming in, you can start to understand that there may be some interesting different things going on here. Maybe Stark Industries, with all of the invoices and weapons being brought over, or calling Stark Industries the Merchants of Death, or Tony the Merchant of Death, or the most famous mass murderer in the history of the world. All those nicknames already existed for Tony before this movie really got going. So this had been going on while Tony was coming of age and before he took over as the new head of Stark Industries, because these weapons are being proliferated in order to get those nicknames, Merchant of Death and the most famous mass murderer in the history of the world. That took a while.
How old do you think Tony is in this movie?
Well, I think he's in his late 30s, maybe.
Okay.
He didn't say
early 30s, but
So likely he took over in his early 20s because he's already
in the video presentation said he was 21 when he took over.
Okay. So they've been developing higher tech weapons, repulsor technology, and some of the things that did not get used, like the thing that's the sonic stun that takes people out, like putting in their ear. All that development stuff was going on for, I don't know, 10 or 15 years with Tony at the helm, bringing in all these new gadgets for the company to exploit and spread as military weapons throughout the world. But they had to build up the reputation of most famous mass murderer in the history of the world and merchant of death. It didn't happen overnight. So maybe Obadiah and the board were supplying weapons to conflict areas all over the place to keep conflict alive, to be a war profiteer.
Yep.
That was clearly
And-
going on.
And that's something that would go right by Tony because he's so concentrated on building the stuff, creating the new gee whiz gadgets.
Inconveniently not paying attention.
Exactly. And even though he's in charge of the company, that's one of the things. Now that's something that I could lay at Pepper's feet because she's supposed to, she's his assistant. She's supposed to be taking care of him. And you would think that maybe she would catch on to some of this stuff as it's happening. But apparently she never does.
Well, maybe he's just too much of a pain in the ass, and
That
I mean,
could- well, yeah.
he's already a handful for her. Maybe that has something to do with it. Now, as far as
That could.
as soon as you get to the missile, Todd, I've got something to say on that, but continue with whatever you're going at.
Well, that was the main point, is that this stuff was going on for a while. It wasn't just moments before. This is years of the company dealing under the table, or at least outside of the purview of everybody, because obviously they were playing both sides of the war. And these reputations were being picked up by some of these hot reporters that are actually doing their job and saying, later on, you're obviously going to see pictures of this stuff, but she seemed to already know that a lot of that tech was getting out to people that shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Across the world. So Tony, who's probably just being the playboy Tony that he is and didn't want the boring Colonel Rhodes in the Humvee with him, because they were drinking together and seemingly over the fact that Rhodes was butthurt, and he kind of got over it. He goes, no, I'm still mad that you were mad at me, so go ride in another Humvee. And he's like, well, good job, it's a good demonstration anyway. And so then he's in the Humvee that gets hit by the ambush, and the blood shows up on his fancy armor, despite the fact that it was fancy body armor he was wearing, and he wakes up in a cave.
Well, hold on. So the
Okay.
missile hits, and he's staring at the fact that says Stark Industries on the missile. This isn't the only time that a missile hits and doesn't explode right away that we know about in the MCU. I guess my question is, did it malfunction and then blow up? Like it didn't blow up on impact the way it's supposed to, or was it designed to land and then blow up? I don't know, but either way, you'd think that if it landed and blew up at the same time, you'd have less people jumping out of the way. So that seemed like it was a malfunction. But that same missile design, I believe, is the one that hit Sokovia, and the Maximoff twins sat there for 3 days wondering whether or not that Stark missile was actually going to blow up in their face. So I thought that was interesting that they threw that same problem from the missiles.
The thing that I got from that scene is Tony's staring at the missile that obviously has his name on it in big, bold white letters. It takes a serious narcissist to put his name on a missile like that. And I don't know about your experience, Todd, but in my experience, any missile or armament that I saw did not have the manufacturer's name in big, bold white letters on there.
No, there's some aviation ordnanceman or someone would put something on "To Saddam with love,"
Yeah.
written on it, like "Eat this," There's more flip it, like "Smile for the camera" or something.
Yeah, in my day, it was generally to Ivan with love. But yeah, they might write something on it, but it didn't say Raytheon in big letters or anything like that.
So this is probably because the weapons were supplied directly from Stark Industries and not reappropriated or captured from military stuff.
Military, okay.
Because military is always going to have mil-spec numbers and specific nomenclature on every missile or what type of missile it is based on, I don't know, I don't know, try not to give actual stuff for you, but AIM 9 or something on
Yeah.
there. The AIM stands for Air Launched Intercept Missile or something, and then the nomenclature is the type of missile it is. All that stuff would have painted over the Stark Industries, but if they got fed their tech right from the source without going through even pretending that it's military, maybe that's why it's got the logos on it. Because it's kind of like a trade show thing. If you look at these international trade shows, everybody's got their logos painted on their planes and on their pods that go on planes and the different weapons and stuff. So but they definitely wanted you to see. They definitely wanted you to see and have him have that realization moment, like, why am I looking at a bomb that's about to blow up that has a Stark Industries logo on it?
Mhm.
Okay, so we move into the cave. He wakes up in the cave. Currently, we're an hour in, and we're only like 3 pages out of 17 in. So, you want me to march along, or do you want to hit every moment? Make sure that you tell me the things you want to hit. If I try to move this a little faster, we're going to end up having a part 2, or go more hours than 2.
There are parts of this that are just action sequences or montages and stuff like that we're not going to have as much to say about anyway. So I figured, as far as what we were saying so far, everything's been character driven, as what we were saying about the characters and how the story was moving along.
Okay.
So yeah, I was good with the timing.
So Tony wakes up and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and there's something in his nose, and he starts pulling on it and pulling on it and pulling on it, and apparently it was all the way down to his ankles inside his body because there's quite a bit of yanking on that tube, which only had to go, I don't know, maybe 18 inches, but he must have pulled out like 4 feet of that stuff. And he's like, something's going on medically. I obviously was blown up or something, and what's going on? And he turns over and he starts yanking on this cable out of his chest, which is making a battery shift. And this guy's sitting here shaving, going, I wouldn't do that if I were you, And he's like, what? And he goes, that cable's connected to your chest, is keeping you alive. You probably don't want to yank that out,
I can tell you that whether or not the length is there in that cable, I can tell you the feeling of it coming out is like 4 feet when it comes out.
I believe you.
Yeah, it's an interminable thing to have that thing pulled out, as I'm sure that Paul even knows.
Actually, I've never had that kind of tubing.
Oh, really?
Though the tubing I did have in me at one time was horrendous when it got pulled out, because they don't give you anything for that.
I can't even imagine you guys going through that. The worst I've ever had were a lot of stitches, and when they were taking stitches out of, basically, if you took a finger and you blew it up to 2 times the size of a quarter-pound hot dog, that was what my fingers were. So I had a bunch of stitches that were straining like this because it was still way swollen. And when it was time to take the stitches out, finally, they cut in a couple places and took tweezers and pulled on it like a ripcord of a lawnmower, and I feel this as it pulled out the long string, and it's like, maybe you could cut those into smaller pieces. It's just my, maybe. And blood would come in out of every hole because they had to reattach a bunch of stuff on my hand. Blood would come out of every hole because they apparently just thought it'd be easier to pull. Oh, it'll come out. No.
Yeah.
And it's like taking skin and blood with it. It's like, I don't think it's sitting in there as loose as you think it is. So
were they trying to start you up? Maybe.
I don't know. It woke me up pretty good, but pulling tubes out of your body, man, you guys, good on you for having to endure that. Phew. Not interested.
Yeah, well, I've had tubes in a few places actually.
So, all right.
But
So,
yeah, so we discover that Tony's got the electromagnet in his chest, powered by a car battery.
yeah, and we start to introduce Yinsen, and they have some conversations. I'll probably get the order which they talk screwed up, but it doesn't really matter. He's going to get to know Yinsen in this cave. Um, at one point, he's like, I met you before, and he
I,
goes, you were talking, and
he says that, and kind of as an introduction to talking to Tony, and then it still takes Tony another 5 minutes of the movie before he even asks Jensen's name. It's like again, it shows how self-centered Tony actually was. That sure, this guy's talking to me, but at the moment, I don't give a crap about him. So I
The
thought that
thing
was
I liked, yeah, the thing I liked about Yinsen was that the character was very true to the comic book character that he was based on. Obviously, because in the original comics, Tony's in Vietnam when he gets blown up and taken into the cave, and the guy that's there is, I think, of Chinese ancestry rather than whatever Yinsen might be, but very true to the character in the comics. I liked that. I liked that the whole origin story as a whole is very true to what was in the comics.
yeah. This one was very close to the cartoon crap. The cartoon Iron Man that had come out a few years before. And, when I saw this after the cartoon, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty close. I mean, they haven't changed anything still, so I'm gonna turn off my mic just for a second because I gotta go find a black piece in a dark room. So hold on, it just fell out. Fell off my
Good
table.
luck.
well, I'll take a quick second to talk about Yinsen's character. It's interesting that in hindsight, watching this whole movie, I think Yinsen was the master, and Tony had to learn Yinsen's wisdom by the end of the movie. I'll explain this later, more from an overview point of view, but I'll start out talking about Yinsen. He seems to not despise Tony for who Tony is, but he sees him for what he is and he understands him. And it doesn't bother him that Tony hasn't figured everything out yet, but he drops some pearls of wisdom to lead him to discover for himself some of the life lessons that Yinsen has. So he says things like, what this is going to be slightly out of order, but they talk, and he has a family, and he's looking forward to seeing them really soon when he gets out of here, And he goes, so who do you have? And he's like, well, nobody.
Yep.
And he doesn't even realize that he's got Pepper, and he doesn't realize that he's got Rhodey yet, but he basically has no one. Some of this because his family was taken from him. He was estranged to his dad before he was taken, but Yinsen seems sad that he doesn't have that pleasure in his life to know that there's joy in having family. And he was like, well, I was kind of drunk when we met in Bern, so I don't even remember. And he goes, well, anyone who had that much to drink, I don't think you'd remember either. But it was quite impressive that you were giving a lecture on microcircuitry at the same time you were at this conference, and you were so drunk you couldn't even stand up, but then you gave this awesome lecture. Your genius is obviously there. But I think that if we had more time, I'd spend more time talking about Yinsen, but I don't want to take away too much from the timeline, but he obviously has perspective. He understands that evil's in this world, and what's really important is to live a good life and to live a meaningful life, and that he saw that Tony probably had the potential to live a meaningful life, but he didn't get it yet to put himself towards living a meaningful life. So Yinsen, no matter how he got out of that cave, however it was going to turn out, knew that by helping Tony, he was continuing to live a meaningful life himself because that was a meaningful thing to do. So he seemed very Master Zenish when it came to accepting who Tony was and actually honestly becoming Tony's friend, even to the point where when he ends up getting threatened to be maimed and tortured or killed, he still didn't throw Tony under the bus when he could have easily given up what was going on.
Yep.
You know,
And it was meaningful for me that Tony stepped forward to defend him when he was about to get maimed. You know, and essentially took responsibility for what they were or weren't doing. You know.
well, Tony had some little spurts of clarity in the movie leading up to his ultimate application of clarity later. But
Yeah.
he knew as soon as these guys came in and said, I want you to build me the Jericho missile, he's like, no, I'm not doing that. Oh, let's torture you for a bit. And he's like, no, I'm not doing that, and he goes, they'll kill you. And he's like, well, we'll make them think that I'm going to build them the missile, but I'm really not planning on building them the missile. He knew that he had to get him and Yinsen out of that cave to get Yinsen back to his family. So Tony had some clarity. He knew he had to get out of that situation. He didn't know how to handle all the other things that were starting to leak into his awareness of what was going on as far as why his weapons were over there and what was really going on. But he knew he had to get out of that cave, and he knew he had to get Yinsen out of that cave. So
Now,
that's why. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I
So
was
I'm about
just
to go in a slightly different direction.
That's why he stood up for Yinsen and said, no, you can't do that. I need him. Because Tony could have survived that moment by letting Yinsen get his tongue burned out and probably killed, But he also knew that in his moment of clarity in that cave is that he and Yinsen were going to get out of that cave at some point.
The question that I had during the cave sequence, they wanted Tony to build the Jericho missile, and the biggest part of the Jericho was the repulsor technology, which, if I'm reading the initial demonstration correctly, was the first time that had ever been deployed in a weapon. Could Tony have? Well, I suppose he could have. But given the components that he had, which were the pieces of all his other weapons, could he have put together repulsors? And that many? Because, that thing merged into, about 30 different repulsor warheads?
It did have a lot of submunitions, yeah.
Well, the 10 rings, obviously, later on when Obadiah's using technology on him, on the main guy, he did say that was always their Achilles heel. That was their problem, is they didn't understand the technology that was possible. So it's very possible that they didn't quite understand the repulsor technology of the Jericho, and they were just thinking the weaponized portion of it, the fact that there was 30 missiles that came out of the single.
Yeah. They didn't know what made the boom. They just wanted more.
What was that?
Right.
They just wanted more of the boom. They didn't care that you call it repulsor technology. I just see it a warhead that goes off.
So that's possible. What they were, the reason why there was a misunderstanding of whether or not he could actually build it or not, because he didn't build a repulsor at all.
No.
None of the Mark I armor has any repulsor technology in it. Well, I suppose the jet maybe, but I thought the jet was just a jet propulsion out of the.
I think it was just rocket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because the
Yeah, it was
repulsor
just
technology actually didn't occur until later when he was building it in his lab. So,
Well, so before we get into his progression on his build real quick, let's give Jensen some more credit. He built an electromagnet with a battery to keep shrapnel from working its way into his heart with some insidious barb shrapnel designed to slowly kill people by having them be the Walking Dead because they die a week later when the barbs finally reach a vital organ or an artery or something. Shows the insidiousness of the lethality of that round, and that it's finally come home to Tony in that instance that this is people that are suffering in the way they die from this very lethal round that doesn't only kill you by it blowing up, but even if you survive, you're probably going to die from it eventually anyway, you know. And Jensen was smart enough to figure out how to keep him alive by putting this magnet to keep it from going into his heart.
well, then you're even looking into the fact that Jensen's had to deal with that enough times that he's known how to deal with it. That takes a bit of time to understand what's going on. Like how many of those missiles were used against the civilians, and since those were all Stark missiles, just how many
Well,
were actually
I
used
assume
against
that
them.
being a doctor in I assume that being a doctor in Afghanistan means you're a traveling doctor, because I don't know how you could just be a doctor of a village and go to symposiums in Bern where you see Tony Stark giving a lecture. I mean, this guy's obviously a genius who's from a village in Afghanistan, but he's clearly genius class, and he's probably seen a lot of war. And Afghanistan is the most conquered piece of dirt in the entire planet for like the last 2,000 years at least. You know,
everybody's tried.
yeah. I mean, from Genghis Khan, Alexander the Great, all the way through Afghanistan's just been basically the dirt crossroads in Willow where they hang the bodies in the crow cage. You know, so um, all right. So let's talk about the stupidity of the captors just for a second. They're watching him in videos, and they see the first thing they see they're doing something with his chest plate as he's making this like glow reactor in his chest, and nobody seems too terribly concerned that he replaced a car battery that was keeping him alive with a magnet in his chest with this glow thing, which is quite impressive to look at. But it obviously is not the missile. But maybe they have in their heart of hearts this future hope of seeing a missile if he can do that. But now he's walking around without a car battery in tow everywhere he goes. So maybe it's okay. That's the first thing they don't recognize. And then when they do come in and they start threatening him and saying what's going on, or they've got video cameras watching him with this knee brace that helps him bend his knee, a mechanical knee brace. I go, how is that a Jericho missile? I mean, how do you look at the plans of a Jericho missile and go, why is he doing that to his knee? You know, it's like, are you that stupid? Because clearly they had cameras watching him do some of this stuff, and pounding on metal and stuff is like, that's not a rocket tube. That's not a rocket fin. That's not, I mean, how dumb can you be? You can't be that dumb. You have to go, that doesn't look like the picture, you know?
You do have to work at it pretty hard to not understand that something wasn't right.
So, I don't know. Let's keep this moving. He's got some plans within plans, and he shows Jensen his plan. When you stack all the sheets together and you shine the light through it, you see this awesome body armor suit, and you're like, yay. Watching it at the movies, you're like, okay, it's another origin story where the Iron Man suit's going to look like it was made by a diver outfit from the 50s or something. Yay, Iron Man movie, this is going to suck. So I was like, oh, where's the fancy Iron Man suit that we saw in the comics? And now we're looking at like the Mark I suit that looked like the first Iron Man issue 1, where he actually looked like that almost. And I was like, oh, this is going to suck for a movie special effects, but okay. Um, So what's interesting is when they're powering this up, Yinsen understands that they need more time. There's no way this is going to be ready. They're coming. They gave us 1 day to finish this, and they just came to the door, and 2 of them got blown up trying to come through the door to find out what's going on in there. And now they're definitely going to be coming within moments. So he knows that there's going to have to be some sort of thing to distract people so that this can get finished. Later in the movie, when Obadiah is powering up the big armor and the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are knocking on the door and coming in, it's an exact parallel to Tony powering up his suit, getting ready to have to deal with what's coming through the door. So I thought that was rather interesting that it's almost a direct parallel in the way it was written. I wonder if they did that on purpose or not, but it seemed pretty, I'm sure they did, because why would you
They had
have
good
it?
writers for this movie. So, but yeah, the thing I found interesting watching it, not to get too far ahead, but as Yinsen's running out through the tunnel with the AK, he never aims at people. The whole time he's running out, he's shooting into the ceiling of the tunnel. And I thought, okay, Hippocratic oath.
Well, he might, that's true. He may have also been having a Han Solo moment running down
That's what I
running
was.
down the passageway. Ah, and they're like, oh, I don't know what's coming, but I'm out of here,
Yeah, that's what I immediately thought was he was making as much noise as possible, and
The Sand People, easy, but they will be back in with more numbers.
Mm.
All right, so Jensen knows he needs more time, so he goes charging down the hall. We know that doesn't turn out so well, but Tony finally gets his armor powered up and starts kicking butt in the passageway. It's interesting to me that in Tony's morality, he knows there's going to be casualties. They put rocket launchers and flamethrowers and guns and everything else on this suit of armor, knowing they're going to have to fight their way out, and it's not pretty ways people are going to die when the suit's used. And Tony seems to be fine with that, the morality of it. Interesting that you mentioned that Yinsen wasn't aiming at anybody, but Tony certainly pointed his weapons at people, knocked them through doors, blew them up at the door, and I don't know if Yinsen says something like, "Oh my," when that worked. Those guys are dead. Okay, woo, But all right, so he fights his way through. Yinsen comes charging through like Han Solo, comes upon all the stormtroopers and realizes that, uh-oh, I'm dead. And what should have happened to Han Solo in real life in that situation happened to Yinsen, and Tony fighting through the passageway ends up coming up on the scene of Yinsen laying there, and also it's not Raza. Raza is that his name? Bad guy comes up on.
the one that ends up getting scarred face.
Yeah, the guy not going to work here very much longer anyway. But yeah, Raza. So he gets taken out with a rocket, disappears from view after the explosion, and then he comes up on Yinsen. He's like, "You got to come on, we got to get out of here." And it's like, "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm clocked out here," And he's like, "No, we got to stick with the plan. We got to go." And he goes, "No, this always was the plan." So you could debate what was the plan in Yinsen's mind. The plan was that he didn't say to Tony when he saw the plans for the suit, "Do I get one of those? How am I getting out of here with you if you've got the suit?" He didn't say anything like, "Hey, I wouldn't mind something to help get me out of this cave too, other than your suit." But his plan all along was that he was going to do the meaningful thing, which was to help Tony, even if he died doing it. And you find out that his family had already been killed by the Ten Rings, and that he was going to see them now.
Yep.
And it was okay. And he couldn't wait to do that. He couldn't self-terminate, but he was happy that now he's going to see them, and he earned his place in Valhalla kind of thing because he had a meaningful life, and he understood that perspective. So he dies, and Tony has this first rage moment of the movie where not only is he mad because he thought Jensen was going to get out of there and see his family and have a happy ending, but his family had already been killed by these bastards. And now Jensen's dead, and now there's some payback coming. So he puts on his rage, his angry eyes from his Mr. Potato Head, and he comes out of the cave. And the first thing he does when he starts getting shot is opens up the flamethrowers and burns some people alive while they're screaming and burning alive, you know. So it's like obviously Rage Tony's taken over and he's going to use everything he can to take out as many of them as he can. They added some comic relief in there a little bit about the dumb guy who comes running up to the metal helmet and shoots it with a bullet. The bullet bounces back and takes him out instead. It's kind of like, okay, we get it. They're not so educated, maybe. Although you think that that's the first thing you learn when you're shooting targets, and the 50 caliber bullet comes back, takes your headphones off, and you're like, hey, that's the last time we're shooting targets with the 50 cal, you know? So anyway, he gets taken out. Eventually, his armor almost gets crippled when one of his legs collapses, and there's not much more he can do. So he lights off his afterburning boots, and he takes off in the sky while he's taking out the armor depot at the same time. So everything in a glorious explosion is blowing up, and supposedly those guys are all taken care of. And he's flying through the air until the rocket stops burning, and now he's falling crazily back down to Earth. The physics of which I don't know how he survived, but he comes crashing into a bunch of sand, and all this heavy armor plating and stuff magically sloughs off his body without taking off any limbs or fingers, and he survives the crash.
Well, I mean, he also amazingly later survives the repulsor push against the cement ceiling. I mean,
yeah,
he somehow survived that, so you got to figure, okay,
without a broken spine. So,
yeah,
you know,
he's pretty hard headed and whatever.
All right, so we'll fast forward. He's wandering through the desert, pissing on his bandana to evaporate the heat off his head and drinking his own pee like Bear Grylls. And eventually hears helicopter noise, and the good guys come, and yeah, and everyone in the audience cheers, and Tony's rescued. So, let me see. From that point, I think it jumps right to his transport home, right?
Yep. Well, Tony Rhodes comes up and says, next time, or he says, "How was the fun, V?" And that's when he says, next time you ride with me.
All right. So they make it back to the runway back home, where you see a teary-eyed Pepper overcome with emotions that her boss is alive, but perhaps sees the wheelchair or whatever, and whatever is overcome with emotions, and she's tearing up, and he comes down the ramp, and they bring the stretcher over. He's like, get that shit out of my face. And he's not going to use the stretcher. He's going to walk this one out. And he comes up on Pepper, and he's like, tears for your long lost boss. And she goes, tears of joy, maybe. And happy that he's alive. And anyone want to say anything about that before he jumps into the car?
No, because the jumping into the car is what I would say.
that scene kind of reinforces the bond and possible love between Tony and Pepper, because you saw it earlier. Well, no, actually, you don't. You see it later on, I think. Yeah, you see it later on. But yeah, I think that's one of the first scenes where you can see that they actually have this unacknowledged thing going on between them.
Yeah, they kind of hint at it a little when they're talking about the Pollock painting, When you're like, they're arguing about why it's an important. No, remember that's not really why he was famous. It was more that's where he lived in the Hamptons or whatever it was, and you start to see that they have something going on other than the fact that she's just an executive secretary. But this is definitely her tearing up. Is that she's emotionally overwrought because of the magnitude of what could have happened if he'd been killed, and the fact that he's alive, and there's some don't know what's going on, but it's scary, but he's alive,
It's like we're looking at more than just familiarity with him. We're looking at sort of a love of him. So yeah.
So they get in the car, and they're like, okay, take us to the hospital. And he's like, no, we ain't going to the hospital. I want two things. I want cheeseburgers and I want a press conference. Cheeseburgers first. Take me to the cheeseburgers. So that was funny. It was meant to be funny. It's like
And
I've
then
been in
product placement.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Burger King product, yeah.
So it's kind of funny. I really got a kick out of when he gets to the press conference with the burgers that he's shoving in his mouth. He's obviously wolfing them down from however far away from this place there was a burger place, because having a press conference somewhere near Stark Industries probably not a burger place on the next block. So he's been wolfing these down since they went through the drive-through, and he's got the bag, and he pulls one out of the bag, and Obadiah meets him, happy that he's alive, I guess, and says, "Hey, you got one of those for me?" And he goes, "No, there's one left, and I need it." And he's eating it, and that's kind of funny. Like, no, you don't shove off. You don't get my burger. This is my burger. And then when he sits down and he starts having a love fest, he pulls another one out of his pocket. So it wasn't his last one. He had two burgers, but Obadiah wasn't getting it. Those were both his. I thought that was funny as hell. I was like, no cheeseburger for you.
So we have the first shot of Coulson then with the strategic what the hell is it called? Strategic Homeland
Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division.
Mm-hmm. That's quite a mouthful.
It is quite a mouthful, but you can handle quite a mouthful, I've heard. So, so anyhow, so yes, we see the running gag of Coulson trying to get an appointment with Tony through Pepper or from Tony himself, and that's kind of funny that it takes him a while, and it's actually well played that comic relief of him trying to get an appointment leads up to the point of seriousness later when he actually gets his interview. So that's kind of well played when they did that.
Oh, hold on a second.
Okay.
Looks like we might have lost the stream. Did you guys lose the stream at all?
No.
I see your hands there.
Okay, it's still
I
going.
don't know how
Okay.
related it is.
Yep.
Cool. All right, keep going.
All right. So Tony apparently just had a 13-hour flight trying to figure out how he's going to re-enter his life after being rescued from the cave that he didn't think he was going to make it out of, perhaps. And he's been thinking. So now he's got this moral clarity that he's going to tell all these reporters that I've been doing some thinking, and I've been realizing that all these technology weapons that I've been building have been winding up in the wrong hands. And not only are Americans winning wars because of them, but Americans are dying from the same weapons that are supposed to be protecting them. And I'm partly to blame for that. And there's apparently some lack of accountability on how this stuff's getting spread out. So until further notice, blah, 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 we're going to shut down the weapons division, which came as a complete shock to everybody. But it was, he leads into it slowly a little bit, because he talks about, if I didn't get to say goodbye to my dad. If I had, I would have asked him if he ever felt conflicted about what he was doing, where the company was leading, and the difference between doing the right thing and bad things happening, even though we're trying to do the right thing, And then he drops the bomb. Immediately, Obadiah Stane jumps to his feet to get to the podium to do crowd control and try and get some control over what's going on. And Rhodey's this look of betrayal and shock in his face, and he's like, "What? My golden goose egg myself, who made me famous being the weapons development guy for the Air Force or the whole military, and you're saying you're going to do what? Huh?"
And Pepper had her look of shock. So yeah,
Mhm.
he was very much only about himself, which was one of the things that prompted Jen to say that he's a sociopath, because he wasn't thinking about anybody else. He was in the moment and just said what he wanted to say, not giving a crap about anybody else. So
But not everybody had the knowledge he had of what was going on and how people were dying from those weapons, how the weapons, all those nicknames that were so easy to brush off from a reporter from the Vanity Fair magazine calling him the Merchant of Death, now starting to say, "Oh shit, I am the Merchant of Death." There's no accountability. If my name's going to be on it, then I'm going to make a decision. And until further notice, this stuff's got to stop until we get a handle on it. And that obviously went over like a lead balloon. And so that leads to Obadiah having the confrontation with him at the arc reactor, I guess. Do we want to say anything before that, or just the fact that was Tony's first moral certitude in what he was doing, that something needed to change because he could see a way forward that didn't include continuing to let that stuff happen?
I thought Obadiah driving a Segway was kind of strange.
Yeah.
You'd think that that somebody would be driving him, but no, he rode a Segway up to the arc reactor.
Well, they don't have two-person segways, do they?
Only the analogies, not the riding machines. So,
Something just occurred to me about Obi's confrontation with Tony at the arc reactor, because he starts off telling Tony, "Hey, let me see it. Let me see it." And Tony's like, "Well, who told you? Was it Happy? Was it Pepper?" And it just occurred to me, who told Obi about the chest piece, the tiny little arc reactor?
dramatic pause.
Yeah, dramatic pause, and I didn't, want to jump right into it, but yeah, he learned about it from Raza of the Ten Rings.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure about that. My thought on that was that he says, "Who was it, Pepper or Rhodey?" Was it Pepper? He goes, "Oh, so it was Rhodey." Remember, Rhodey was getting his career was doing quite well by being the military side of the contracts with all these Stark weapons and Stark technology. And there's two ways, I guess, you could look at it. Mostly, it might have been, I don't know why Tony's doing this. He's obviously distraught about what happened. But he does have something interesting on his chest, and maybe that's why he did it. So maybe he still didn't buy into it. He still wasn't happy that Tony was being irresponsible, not thinking about himself. He was ruining it for everybody. Come on, Tony, you're ruining it for everybody. But I think Obadiah might have heard it from Rhodey, because Rhodey was still in his butthurt phase every time something happens. And he was butthurt that Tony was going to stop doing this weapons development all of a sudden, or at least seemingly was gonna. Maybe he had PTSD, maybe all this was going wrong and that Tony needs to get his head right or whatever. But I think Rhodey probably told Obadiah.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. And maybe it was kind of in a, hey, Obadiah, maybe, here's what I've seen. Maybe you can push him to do something with it.
Yeah. So he says, "Okay, so show me. Just quit screwing around. Show me." So he looks at it and he sees it. It's this miniature arc reactor, and like, holy shit! The power industry, the power applications, the military applications all these dollar signs start going through Obadiah's head, and he's like, okay, maybe I can spin this and we can all get rich on this, even though regardless of what's happened, maybe Tony's still got something that he can give me, even though I didn't see it coming. I was happy to be rich the rest of my life from selling his weapons to people under the table, whatever. But hey, here's something that at least could help with this current situation, since the stock just took a dive, 40 points or 50 points or whatever. So I think Rhodey thinks that Tony's lost his mind. Obadiah definitely thinks that that's not the way to handle business, by announcing that to the press, that a weapons company is going to stop making weapons, and that's pretty much how that ends. And then it just kind of fades into Pepper watching the news with the aftermath of it. And this guy is like, hey, I've got an idea for a business plan. This is Stark Industries. And he hits it with a baseball bat, and it's like, bash. And it's like, hey, sinking ship, all the rats, run for the ropes, because this ship's going down. This is a weapons company that doesn't make weapons,
That guy is an actual financial reporter or he was, for
MSNBC.
Yeah,
MSNBC.
And that was exactly how he used to do his show.
So here's my whole movie analysis of the progression of Tony coming back. So I think we're in the middle of it now, where this is the world who doesn't understand Tony again. So everybody's happy that whenever he produces something, they don't care about Tony. They just care that, oh, look at these great prizes that are coming out. Obadiah has been leeching off the Stark Empire this whole time. He doesn't care about Tony. Rhodey's been getting all these weapons development contracts. He really doesn't care, or doesn't get Tony that way. Pepper has her inside job with the Playboy, awesome business guy. She can do everything. She can drive a fancy car. She can figure out charities, the 3rd annual charity for missing Boy Scouts or whatever the heck that thing was, and driving her fancy car and buying herself a dress for her birthday because it's very tasteful and thank you. And they don't get Tony at all. The whole world was happy to be a leech off of Tony Stark and everything that he produces. And no one even thought to think about why Tony would have done that, or even apologize for him doing it, for maybe having PTSD. All they knew is that, are you kidding me? He goes, this is a business plan. It's over. Tony Stark, he's crazy. He's out there. And it's like, dude, he just got held captive in a cave, tortured, somehow. They didn't care. All they understand is that, hey, something's going on, and the Tony Stark legacy is going to be ruined because look what he's doing, So anyhow, that's more of the misunderstood Tony, and the reason why Tony is the way he is and the way he does the Playboy act, because he doesn't have anyone who's on his side, and he doesn't have anyone he can relate to, and they obviously are not on his wavelength at any point in time.
Yep.
So Tony's back at his in his basement, and he calls Pepper, who's watching this news thing, and says, hey, how big are your hands? She's like, what? He's like, how big are your hands? He goes, why? I need you. Okay. So she comes down.
The hands, the bigger I look.
Ooh, they are big. You get the Deadpool scene with you might want to leave the room. It's like,
yeah.
So Pepper comes down and sees that here's our Pepper and Tony moment. He sees Tony kind of laying on a table, being as vulnerable as she's ever seen him, because clearly there's something medically going on. She doesn't think she's qualified. He needs her help to do something, and she's like, I can't do that. What are you talking about? No, what's wrong? Do I need to call a doctor? Do I need to get you to the hospital? And what's happening? He goes, no, it's just like an operation. You're good. It'll kill me, but go ahead and try and pull this out, and it's all good.
Operation.
Huh? Yeah, what's operation?
What's operation? That killed me.
Yeah,
I didn't know what that game
yeah.
was.
If it touches the side, I'm gonna die. But no pressure. Just go. You can do this. So she gets in there and she's all kind of grossed out by it. She doesn't know what's going on. She thinks it's some bodily discharge in there. It smells terrible. And hey, just whatever you do, don't pull that. Oh, you mean this? Oh, crap. And he's like, okay. Before I die and go into cardiac arrest, you need to plug this back in and stuff. And when it's all done, she's like, don't ever ask me to do anything like that again. And he's like, there isn't anyone else to ask. There's only you.
Yep.
And they have like a little moment there where it's like she realizes that he realizes that he's lonely, she's lonely, they're lonely together. He really doesn't have anyone else. She is the only one that could have done it, Who's he going to call? Rhodes? Rhodes gets butthurt every time something doesn't go his way. He doesn't. He sees potential that Tony isn't. He doesn't see Tony and what Tony does. He sees the potential that Tony could move into, that he's not there yet. So Tony's on his own except for Pepper. And it's sad, but he does this little facial expression like, you're all I got. I'm not good at words. I'm not good at saying things, but it's you. If it wasn't you, even if I died doing this procedure, who would have mourned me? There's only you. It's just you and me. So
And
she helps
who
him.
would know for a few days at least.
What was that?
Without Pepper, if Tony died laying there on the table, who would know?
Dummy. I think Dummy would have been the only one that would have known.
He would have sprayed him.
Yeah.
So the moment that Tony has this reflection that there is no one else, it's just Pepper, he's already in his pensive, emotional, trying to figure out what's going on mode from the long flight back from captivity. He goes right to Rhodes. And Rhodes is like, Tony, what the hell are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in bed? Obviously you're not well. Look what you said at the press conference and all this stuff. And he goes, no, I'm here because I've got something I want to show you. It's really big and I want you in on it. So he's reaching out to his other friend. If he has another friend, it's going to be Rhodes. And he goes, I want you in on it. And he goes, well, I thought you weren't going to do weapons anymore. And he goes, well, this isn't exactly along those lines, but it's big and I want you to be part of it with me. And he's like, no, look, you need to get yourself right. You're screwed up in the head. You're screwing everybody, no. And Tony's like completely shattered. And he's sitting there going, okay, I guess you're not the friend I thought I needed. You're not my friend like I thought you were. So he's kind of shattered by that. You can see it in his eyes. Good acting on the part of Robert Downey Jr. But that was a good scene. Tony was really, he knew right after the scene with Pepper that she was the only friend he had except for Rhodes. And he went to Rhodes, and Rhodes proved that he's still the person that doesn't see Tony for who he is. He sees Tony for the playboy, lack of potential, whatever. He's just he's not there with Tony.
He's only valuable to Rhodes when he's the golden goose.
Yeah.
That's it. And when he stops being golden and stops laying golden eggs, Rhodey's got no use for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty moving scene too, because despite Tony not having the ability to show his feelings very well, you can tell how much of a blow that was to realize that his friend just isn't what he thought, what he had hoped for.
Yeah, all of his memorized lines that he practices in the mirror and his flippant comebacks and stuff, there wasn't anything he could do to recover from the fact that that was a blow.
Yep.
So Tony goes to his other friend, Jarvis. I guess you could call him a friend because there's Pepper now and there's basically Jarvis. And he decides we're going to upgrade some things because we upgraded the electromagnet to the mini arc reactor Mark I that he made in the cave. he upgraded that to a Mark II reactor, which is more powerful, that Pepper helped him put in his chest. And now he's making some more upgrades. He's going to upgrade the armor suit. And he starts tearing apart the plans in his 3D modeling, virtual reality modeling, says, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. And he starts doing some real designing. And made it more powerful. Huh? Go ahead.
If you don't mind, just to back up a moment. If Rhodey had said, yeah, okay, let's go see what you're doing, what are the chances, you think, that Rhodey would have ended up in the armor? Being that he was a pilot, what do you think the chances are that that was Tony's goal, was to put Rhodey in the armor?
That's an interesting thought. It could go that way. It could have gone, maybe both of them would get an armor suit and they'd both be in on it, or just, that's good. I mean, he was a weapons manufacturer, but he was going the power way. So maybe while he's updating the suit, because he updates everything, because that's Tony, he was updating the suit, but maybe he didn't see military potential in it per se yet, because the first thing he started doing was working on flying boots, and he was quite amazed that, hey, look, I can fly, you know. So it wasn't that he was trying to create the next weapon, because he was already upset that his weapons were not being handled well when he makes them. They were given to the wrong people. But it does seem that he was excited about sharing a new way to move forward, and Tony or Rhodes wasn't there for him. But so he's making some upgrades to the last thing that he knew. He's probably in the still hiding out, because Obadiah probably told him to lay low for a while and don't get into any trouble because of that press conference. So he's tinkering and he's making things, and he's making his new armor. Now it cuts away from that and leaves you there, and you see the 10 Rings guys combing the desert to look for the droids and saying, we ain't found shit, you know. They're like looking for the pieces of the thing, and putting together the fact that, hey, this was a giant flying robot, which they're building the case for that as they're finding the pieces. We saw him walking, but nobody knows how he escaped the explosion. They didn't know that he took off in a rocket. All the people that saw him take off in the rocket got blown up in the fireball. You know, the Raza, the head guy, he was in the cave unconscious, seemingly been taken out, but not really, just got some injuries. So nobody knew how he escaped. So they start putting this together themselves while they're finding the pieces. They don't know that it was a flying robot that escaped. All they know is they saw the robot blasting a bunch of people, and now they're finding pieces in the middle of the desert. You know.
Well, I've got to say thank you for the Spaceballs reference.
Oh, you're welcome. Why didn't anyone tell me my ass was so big? Anyway. So Tony starts working on the flight system. He's working on the boots. He has these controls in his hand that look like launch controls. And he's like, let's start out with 10% power and just see how this goes. And all of a sudden, bang, slams into the wall, drops, and he puts out this, oh, if you listen to it, if you play it back, when he hits the ground, after he slaps the wall, you hear this when he lands. And then Dum Dum comes in with a fire extinguisher and starts spraying him. You know, that's all pretty good, funny comedy. When unexpected things happen, it's definitely I don't know. Is that considered slapstick? It's definitely situational humor, but
it goes very close to slapstick. Yeah.
It was fun.
And throughout the rest of the montage there, he's got a wound on his forehead right here that you barely see because they don't focus on it. But it wasn't there before, but after he slapped into the wall, he had a big bloody wound up here on his forehead.
Yeah, but everything comes so easy to Tony. I don't know what you're talking about. The stuff just magically appears. That's the coolest thing I ever saw. I don't know. You know, he's got a scratch on his head. You know, anyway. So he decides he needs to make some stabilizers, and he tries again at like 1% power and something like that, and then he goes up to 2% power, and he's like flying around the shop, and he's hovering over expensive cars, and like, oh, this is definitely somewhere I don't want to go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. He's like, finally lands, and he's okay. I can fly.
Mm-hmm.
This is like the coolest thing since ripped bread, and the coolest thing since ripped bread was sliced bread, and the coolest thing since sliced bread is that I can fly. That was cool. So he ends up. I don't want to jump ahead. Where's the first time that he accidentally shoots off the repulsor off his hand?
That's when Obadiah Stane's upstairs, and
With the pizza.
Pepper comes down with the coffee in the box that's wrapped in brown paper, the gift for him, and she sets that down.
Yep, and he sets off the repulsor, and it scares the hell out of him. And the first thing she seems like, "What? You making weapons?" And he goes, "No, that's a flight stabilization system." But yeah. So I don't know if she went away mad at him for making weapons again or not. It didn't seem like it when I watched it the last time, because she was sitting upstairs when they were getting pizza from Obadiah. So it wasn't like she ran off. But
she was concerned about other things. I think the news that Obadiah was bringing probably more concerning to her than, Tony's little light show.
But there was a lack of a moment they could have had because she was bringing him a present, and it was completely overlooked. So, he doesn't even open it then. They go upstairs, and Obadiah's up there, and he's like, "Hey, we missed you in the board meeting." And he's like, "Oh, I thought you told me to lay low." And he goes, "Not when it's a board meeting, in the public, I want you to stay low, but not when it's the people wondering why their stocks dropped so far,
But it's kind of funny because he really didn't want him there in the first place.
No, I'm sure he didn't.
Because he was blazing for not being there, but he was really like, well, I'm the one that started the injunction against you. What he says later, but when he brings up that they want to bring up the injunction, he never mentions it's him that does it, but he's quite glad that Stark wasn't there because he would have had to do it.
Yeah, because you would think that if it's a board meeting and it's that important, between Obadiah and Pepper, they'd have got him there. Because whenever he's got to be somewhere, he may show up late, but it's Pepper that's dragging him by his collar, got him by the ear, dragging him along to wherever he's got to be. So,
it's definitely Obadiah trying to make him think that he was missed, maybe more than Obadiah missed him. And that maybe the board did miss him, and the board was getting more mad at him, which only gave Obadiah the ability to control the board better, saying, "Hey, I'm still in control of the Golden Goose. We're going to put an injunction on him. We'll lock him out of control because clearly he doesn't have the stakeholders' best interests in his mind." So Obadiah's definitely got the board where he wants the board, and he's I think he says that to Tony, "Hey, I've got the board." No, he says it a little bit later. He says, "I've got," when they're at the next, I think at the next gala or whatever, but
the firefighters against fire.
The what?
The firefighters against fire or whatever they were.
Yeah. So, he basically says, "Well, you want to tell me what you're doing down in the basement?" And he goes, "Nope, sure don't." And he goes, "Well, then you're not getting any of this pizza." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to take a piece." And he goes, "Here, you can have one." And he goes, "Can I come down and see what you're doing?" He's like, "Nope." And he goes down there and goes back to his basement playing with the flight system. And then I think somewhere it says day 11 in his little log where he's saying that he's been working on it. He's obviously been working on the suit already because the suit starts getting attached to the boots right after this. But that's when he, day 11, tests his flight system with the repulsor, hand repulsors for stabilization, flies around, and has a successful flight test. And the fact that, yep, I can fly. That's where I think that's where that happened after the pizza, maybe. But then they start putting the Mark II suit together. This is the one that was the first one built after the cave, and it's all silver. They put it together, and this is where Tony does the thing that Obadiah says, no more of this ready, fire, aim crap.
Yep.
He does the ready, fire, aim stuff with Jarvis, and he goes, Jarvis says, hey, good job. You did all the tests. Let's power down and analyze the data. And he goes, nope, we're going to take it for a flight. Tell me what the flight patterns look like, and we're going to go for a ride. And he goes screaming out of his shop, and he goes flying.
Run before you walk.
Yep. Sometimes you got to run before you can walk. And in Tony's regular haphazard fashion of leaping forward beyond what he should, he, as a test pilot kind of does, he decides not only is he going to fly around, but he's going to say, hey, by the way, what is the altitude record for the SR-71? He goes, 85,000 feet or something. He goes, well, here we go. And he starts aiming for it. And then he starts getting indications from Jarvis that we have an ice buildup on the suit. And he's like, just keep going. And all of a sudden, everything blacks out of power and everything's frozen solid. He's flying down through the air. He's talking to Jarvis, but there's no answer because Jarvis is shut down. And he goes, we got to break up this ice. And he pulls on the it looked like the flare dispenser or something on his leg, which controlled flight surfaces, and it popped all the flight surfaces open, which broke the ice and rebooted Jarvis. Saves him just before he crashes into the ground. And he gives out that scream, which gets the whole audience all revved, where he's like, yeah, as he's flying with the heads-up display with all the stuff. The greatest technological advances in movie CGI magic just showed that some person can have a full-on 3D heads-up display inside his helmet, and we're going to make a flying suit that can go up to 85,000 feet almost, and he's flying, and it's pretty cool. So...
which brings him to the landing.
Yes.
Now this shows you just how heavy the first Mark II armor was, because
yes,
later
and
on he says,
it all might have been.
What's that?
Did you ever see MD Geist? It was an anime movie. It was a really cool movie about a warrior that sees a war going on, and he picks the losing side to help him so that they win. He's got this power armor, and it's got kinetic wheels that spin up, and then when you use that kinetic power into the motion, you can have like a super suit that does really cool things. And it's possible that powered suit, because in the cave he had powered joints being powered by the arc reactor. That whole suit may be that heavy.
Yeah.
He has to have the momentum to catch a car without just being thrown back because he just caught a car. It's possible that suit is that heavy, and it's just powered. So it's kind of like an exo armor or exoskeleton suit that you can lift 750 pounds with one arm, because it's all powered by the arc reactor.
Well,
so he cut the power. Huh?
The first armor, the Mark II, like I said, or the second armor, was definitely that. He did say later, though, right before going to the Fireman's Family Fund gala, at wherever Disney's something or other, he did say we're going to try a different alloy because he wanted something that wasn't going to ice up when it hit the atmosphere. So
I think it was a gold tungsten alloy, like on one of his satellites, I think.
Or gold titanium, one of those.
Titanium.
Yeah. Yep. So, all right, where are we at?
So the first armor being heavy, when he doesn't quite realize how heavy it is.
Yeah. He cuts the power
before landing on the car below.
Yep, took out a grand piano, took out a really fancy car. And so he's putting ice packs on himself, and this is the first time you see those like bruise rings on his neck and different things from the stuff comes so easy to him. That's the coolest thing I ever saw. This is actually Tony developing and wearing the bruises from his development of his stuff. So that's when he notices the package and he unwraps it from Pepper, and it shows. This proves that Tony Stark really does have a heart. That was, I thought at first maybe Tony might have got a little tinge of, I should have acknowledged this present when she was giving it to me, but we kind of blew it off and went upstairs and had pizza with Obadiah and missed the moment. But he sees it now, and it's kind of like the wedding singer when Adam Sandler sees the sheet music that the girl made for him, and they had a blow up, and she throws it up in the air, and he looks and he goes, "Oh, she made me a present. I am an asshole." It's it's kind of like that is their moment that they shared together, and that was a tribute to their moment, not the fact that it was a chess piece that was outdated, but because he claimed he wasn't sentimental enough to keep the old one. But how do you want Pepper to dispose of a power reactor? What, are you going to put that in the garbage disposal? How are you going to get rid of that anyway? But take it out of my sight. I don't want to see it.
Put it in the recycling can. Let the city take care of it.
Exactly. So, I mean, they got the lithium batteries already in the landfill. Might as well have an arc reactor in there too. So, so he unwraps it. He sees that Tony has a heart, and so they start talking about the coming up on the Mark III suit, which is fixing all the problems with the icing. Where he goes, this was handled by whatever, which is probably caused by icing. And Jarvis goes, an astute observation. It's like, yeah, I think I got it, the icing. So they make up the suit. He shows it to him, rendering of it. It's solid gold. And he's like, that's a little ostentatious, isn't it? And he goes, oh, yeah, you're always so subdued. And your Jarvis is making a little cut on Tony for his flamboyant behavior all the time. He goes, I'll tell you what, he looks at his favorite Hot Rod screensaver and he goes, why don't you try putting some Hot Rod red?
He actually looked at the Hot Rod.
Yeah.
And so he renders it up and says, yep, that's good. Make it, paint it. He'd been seeing the news on the TV about the gala that he didn't think that he was invited for, but hey, I got 5 hours. I can't do anything while this is being built. Let's go have some Playboy fun and crash the party and come out from the shell because he's been hiding in his basement for over 11 days. So Tony doing everything probably 11 days with very little sleep, if any. And he's got 5 hours downtime because of this manufacture of the suit going on. I'm going to go do what I do, which my character's definition is the way that I can relate to the world is to be this playboy that does playboy things whenever I interact with the world. Plus, they seem to like it,
I want his 3D printers.
Go ahead. I didn't hear what you said.
I want his 3D printers.
Yes, he must have some really cool ones. Yeah. Well, there's nothing cooler than prototyping stuff while you're working on it. I mean, you print it out 4 hours later, you go, oh, that didn't work. Let me fix that, readjust it, and hit print again. And, next thing you know, you have one that does work. And you're like, oh, I just rapid prototype something. That's kind of cool. So I would love to get one that I used to have a 3D printer that was printed in plastic, one color only. And I have a friend who has one that does 3 different colors. And I like the next time I get something, it's going to have a bunch of abilities to do more than what I was doing. Theron, can you hear me?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay, videos on our side.
Yeah.
On all right, it's still showing up on the. I don't know whether it's live or not, but it's still showing up on the.
Yeah, it's your camera that you lost out on.
Okay.
I'm still here.
All right, so Tony goes to this gala event, and Obadiah seems pretty shocked that he shows up. make sure he goes, take it slow. I think I have the board right where I want them. That's where he says that.
Mhm.
So this is more of him. I think that he was being honest in his charade by saying he probably does have the board right where he wants them, but he's the one that's controlling what the
Yeah.
board's deciding on. He meets up with Christine, the reporter, again. Can't remember her name. At first, until she reintroduces himself, and he's like, yeah, that's right. And she starts giving him all these accusations about, I thought you said you weren't going to, or you weren't part of this. And he goes, why are there weapons in this place called Golmira? And here's some pictures, and it happens to show the latest and greatest weapons, including the Jericho missile, which he refused to build for them. And they've got him now. And he starts to realize that he's being naive, and he's been naive, and he's still naive, and he needs to start paying attention to what the company's doing in his absence. And
And where have
And
we heard the village of Gulmira before?
That was the doctor's
That was
hometown.
Jensen's home.
Jensen's.
yeah, Jensen's place. And it was only a couple clicks from where Tony was found, we find out, when he test flights his Mark III suit. But so Tony finds out that all this stuff's still going on, brings the pictures to Obadiah Stane in front of other people too, and he confronts him, and he's like, I thought we weren't doing this. We weren't double dealing under the table. And he goes, you can't afford to be this naive. We're ironmongers. We make weapons. That's the response from Obadiah. So Tony's naive little world is now fully collapsing to give him some more moral clarity at the bottom of this. But he's got accusations from Christine, the reporter. He's not sure whether or not he's still responsible for everything she's saying, but he's thinking probably. Obadiah is calling him naive to his face, that he can't be this naive. This is how the world works. Are you ignorant? So Obadiah is calling him ignorant. He looks at the news, and he's seeing these weapons from in Golmira in a real world modern day Heart of Darkness. The descent into the Heart of Darkness, into Golmira, where all this killing's going on, and all these buildings have bullet holes everywhere. And he sees his weapons in the hands of the 10 Rings, who he sees on the TV screen, the actual guys that were the ones who dunked his head in the water until he almost drowned and almost burned out Jensen's tongue. And he thought he blew up the guy who was the head of the 10 Rings, and now he sees him on the TV, still alive. So now Tony has his second rage event. So all this sets him off, and he gets pissed off and starts shooting out window panes, or wall window panes, in his lab with the repulsors, going, you know what? This works pretty good as a weapon. And so he arms up the Mark III suit, if he changes it at all, or if he'd already embedded some of those weapon systems in it, who knows? But now with the idea that this is going to stop and he's going to stop it, he's going to take off and have his second rage moment where he's going to actually do something.
On that note, I will be right back.
Okay.
Thing.
So the next scene, it cuts to being in Golmira, where the terrorists are rounding up the civilians, and they're going to either take the men or take the women and children and kill the men, or they're obviously mopping up a town. And a boy runs to his dad, and his dad is comforting the boy, and the bad guy rips the boy from his arms and starts stomping on his chest, and tells one of his henchmen to shoot this dog, and the guy's about to get shot. And all of a sudden he hears jet noise coming closer and closer, and all of a sudden superhero landing, chicka-boom, Tony drops down right in front of the guy and immediately starts taking fire, and dig, 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 and he starts knocking guys backwards, and they're flipping through the air.
Speaking
He starts
of which,
taking out guys.
That first guy that he hits, where the guy launches into the air and slaps into that wall and drops. That was very, very satisfying to watch that happen.
Well, it was a homage to Tony slapping the wall with his power boots, you know. So now it's actually cool, and it's justice, and then someone else is going to feel that pain, you know. So he's taking people out. It gets complex. They take hostages, and they're all aiming weapons at the kids and the women's necks and everything. And so now he's got his super targeting heads-up display that picks out each individual target. This little mini rocket launchers come out on his shoulder, and thunk, they all die at the same time. And it's like, you can't beat Tony Stark and his tech, you know. And so the second in command bad guy, the 10 Rings, gets on his sat phone, and he's starting to punch in the numbers, and the armored hand comes to the wall, grabs him, and yanks him through the wall, leaves him on the ground, and yeah, he goes, he's all yours, and he leaves, and all the villagers get to take out their vengeance on the guy who's been tormenting the village and killing all the people. So right after that, he launches into the air. He's targeting all the weapons, identifying where the Jericho missiles are, and he's about to blow them up. And kabang, he gets hit by a round from a tank, knocks him out of the air. I will tell you that other than the app on my phone, which I had been tempted to try to download but decided not to because I was playing Angry Birds or something and it was an advertisement, apparently tanks can shoot helicopters and other things out of the air with a round. Haven't seen this in real life. Not sure whether or not it's a thing. But in this movie, a little flying man in a tiny suit apparently got targeted by a tank and got hit by a shell in the air while he was flying. That was pretty impressive. Knocks Tony out of the sky.
That guy needed a raise. Well,
he kind of climbs up, and he's got all these like streaks and dents. Huh?
I said up until the
Say
fact
what?
he died. He needed a raise up until the fact he died.
I don't know what that means. I'm not sure I'm following you.
The targeting guy who hit him out of the sky with the tank dies within, what, 4 seconds?
Oh, yeah.
Iron Man.
Guy in the tank not going to work here anymore in a second, yeah.
Yeah.
So
he needed a raise, but unfortunately he didn't live long enough.
The funniest thing, he takes his rocket out, and it pops out, and all I could think of was a future movie with the moron with his Cohiba selling the rocket that is like this is the cream de la cream, and it goes and it lands on the ground and doesn't do anything. It's kind of funny that comes out later, because in this one, that thing comes off the arm in such a wimpy way. It's kind of like and it like comes out and click, boom, and the whole tank blows up. It was like my little cricket gun from Men in Black. Mm-hmm. You know, my noisy cricket. That was like a little noisy cricket rocket. But it was so funny that it came off that rail so wimpy, and then it blew up the tank. That was pretty good. But all right, so he blows up the tank, blows up all the weapons, and all of a sudden, the 99 red balloons sets off. The super high-tech jet fighters get scrambled, and there's something in the sky, and it's not authorized. And is that Air Force? It ain't Air Force. It ain't Navy. It's not Army. He goes, where's Rhodes? Is this weapons development? It's not me. I got nothing. There's no tech in there. And all of a sudden, there's someone in my battle space blowing stuff up. So the military goes all red alert and tries to shoot down whatever this is that's not authorized in the war zone. Anybody got any insights on that other than keep on describing it?
This is the part that I'm like, come on, Rhodey, don't be a dick. You know that he was working on something, and you give him a call, and he, gives you a little bit of a shine.
Tony,
no, it's not really me. Rhodey, come on. You know it had to be him. It happened within a click of where Tony was held.
Well, I can see Rhodey having a very big suspicion that it was something Tony built, but that's a bit of a leap to the actually being Tony piloting.
Right, I agree with that, but the fact he just said when Tony said no, it's not me, and then he Okay, go ahead and shoot it out of the sky. I mean, but he had to have known.
So, Theron, you might know about this, maybe not. The guy who ends up having the wing ripped off his Raptor and he has to eject, was that the Terminator 2 actor?
Oh, I didn't pay attention to the actor.
He
I'm
looked
sorry.
just like him. He's like, hey, there's a man and he's under the wing. I think it's the guy who played Terminator 2. I'm not positive. I tried to look it up and I didn't get to it before this podcast, but it looked
So
an
you
awful lot like.
was Robert Patrick,
Does
right?
that
Wasn't
sound
that
like?
the actor?
Right, Robert
I don't
Patrick's the
know.
actor that we're talking about. Yes.
You gonna check and see if his filmography includes Iron Man?
Well, I'm looking at the IMDb for Iron Man, and I don't see him in here. But
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
take a look.
Unless they name who the pilots were, I don't know.
No, I don't think that. But I think if it was Robert Patrick.
So it's kind of funny that during the dogfighting and everything, they shake him loose from under the plane when he's hiding by grabbing under the one of the planes, and when he's shaken loose, he flies out of control and gets intercepted by the other plane, and that plane loses its wing. That was completely those guys doing it to themselves. Tony had nothing to do with it, And then Rhodes goes, you owe me a plane, right? And he's like, no, technically, he flew into me. But it's funny that so Rhodey is starting to have the realization that Tony, in confidence, had come to him earlier and said, I'm
Mhm.
onto something really big and I want you in on it. And he refused to be in on it. And now we're starting to realize that this is what that was. And it's partly his fault that this event's going on. So these Raptors are fighting Tony and it's Rhodey's fault. So he's kind of being hush hush and quiet over in the corner because he's come to the station that this whole thing came about because he refused to listen to Tony when Tony basically gave him the in to know what was going on with them.
And Robert Patrick does not have Iron Man on his IMDb.
All right. Well, I'm going to have to freeze frame it and look because I swear to God, that pilot looks just like him. But if anything else, he has an accolade to say that he looks like Terminator 2, even if he isn't. So maybe that'll be good for his career. Although this was 2008, he's probably not even acting anymore. Look what happened to Happy. He's not exactly a picture of health I used to be, but look at me. I'm not the picture of health I used to be, so I'm not trying to say that. That's
Shall we go
there?
there? Shall we go there? Definitely not.
So also, meanwhile, all this stuff goes on in the news, and they have a cover story where Rhodes says it's a training accident, which is what Tony recommended he say. And Obadiah is watching this on news, and he sees this press release, and he's got the Mr. Potato Head angry eyes that he took from what was it, Rhodes who had it before? But he's not happy looking at the screen because he's putting something together that probably Tony has something to do with it, and he's putting two and two together. So Obadiah is getting mad. All right. So an interesting thing that it just takes away from the movie to comment on it, but I can't help it, is the 13-hour flight it takes to get to and from Afghanistan. Even if you don't even stay on a tarmac very long. Huh?
Yes, just
What's
gloss
that?
right over it. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we're completely agreeing with you.
All right. Well, just without afterburning engines, which Tony had on his suit, but I don't know whether the new lighter suit than the Mark I with the better reactor can sustain supersonic flight for very long. But maybe even if you did, you could get back in 6 hours and make some things happen, like get out of your suit and have Pepper catch you getting undressed by a machine. But it took some time for Obadiah Stane to go and visit the 10 Rings after he sees this news conference because he gets pissed off. So all this kind of happening almost simultaneously. Tony makes it back. He's getting undressed. And he goes, she walks in on him. Don't look at me like that. This isn't the worst thing you've seen me do. And which means she's probably walked in on him doing lots of things from Playboy models to taking care of things himself. Who knows? I mean, he's a tech guy. Who knows? But
Whatever he was, the GI Joes.
but she's like, are those bullet holes? And this is where she's starting to get mad that she starts getting butthurt that he's back into the danger business after he was miraculously saved from danger and came back to her, and now he's getting all involved in it all over again. So she starts to get butthurt here, and this is the Pepper Potts butthurt phase of the movie. But so Obadiah Stane goes and he talks to the 10 rings and uses a good sonic device on the guy's head and says, yeah, we don't really need you anymore. We appreciate that you found this awesome Mark I suit, and now we sort of have an idea of what Tony did, and we'll take that off your hands. And all right, guys, clean up here. And they shoot everybody. So the 10 rings is no more now. Their weapons had already been blown up by Tony. Now all the people, except for their small arms they had on them, have all been taken out by Obadiah Stane's personal Spec Ops team. And presumably he could have used that Spec Ops team anytime he wanted to, except the longer he at least wanted them to stick around until they paid for all those new weapons when they bought the Jericho missiles that they got and the other stuff. Obadiah is making money, and the business is making money the whole time. But now that they've been paid, these guys are now a liability, so they get taken out. Now Obadiah gets this awesome gift. They find out what Tony really did to get out of that cave, and all you need for something like that is something that could power it. Oh, Tony's got this great power source, and that's how he got out of the cave with his armor. I think I can make something out of this. And the war profiteering gears start turning in his head. And so Obadiah Stane's kind of good to go now that he's going to start developing that. So we come to the argument between Pepper Potts and Tony, where Tony has to convince her that he's now seeing clearly where he's never seen clearly before, and that her worries about his danger or the safety of him in the face of new danger doesn't matter. And they have a argument to a good conclusion. There's
only the next mission.
There is nothing else except the next mission. I put these weapons into bad people's hands, and now I'm trying to save the people that are in danger from it. And you're going to walk away from me now? And he convinces her. It's a good little speech. It's not too long and grandiose, but she ties in. And this is very quickly went from Pepper Potts being butthurt to Pepper Potts being on his side and willing to take risks, because she shows some real courage by going to the headquarters to steal this information on a thumb drive that Tony tells her to go get.
I actually have that truncated. That I wrote that one down because it's a really big turning point for the two of them. Where she says, "Tony, I cannot help you if you're going to start this all over again." He says, "There is nothing except this. There is no art opening. There is no benefit. There is nothing to sign. There is the next mission and nothing else." And she says, "Is that so? Then I quit." And he said, "You stand by me while I reap the benefits of destruction. And now that I'm trying to protect the people that I put in harm's way, you're going to walk out?" She says, "You're going to kill yourself, Tony. I'm not going to be a part of it." And he says, "I shouldn't be alive unless it was for a reason. I'm not crazy, Pepper. I just finally know that what I have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I know in my heart that it's right." And she says,
Yep.
"You're all I have too." But I thought it was interesting he said heart, because that was what she gave him, was proof that he had one. So I thought that was an interesting turn between the two of them.
He has a moral compass now that only points to true north. No matter where you turn, he's got it. He's got moral clarity, and he knows he's right, and he knows it's the right thing to do, and he knows that that's going to be him living that meaningful life that Jensen challenged him to live. Make your life worth it, make your life be meaningful and do the right thing. and now he's doing it. He finally can see it, So that's a very good moment in the whole movie where, no, there is nothing except this mission. And that was a great turning point. So Pepper goes to the computer at work and he catches her playing around on the computer, and it set off a security alert as soon as she plugged it in. So he came to the office because of the security alert. So obviously she was doing something. I don't think he knew exactly what she was doing, but she came to work where she hadn't been at work in Tony's office since Tony's been away for now probably 15 days. So he goes, "What are we going to do about this?" I think he was saying, "What are we going to do about Tony and his PTSD and his antics and what's going on?" Not necessarily that he knew she was hacking the computer or doing anything like that.
Well,
Yeah.
it was everything he says in that conversation can have two meanings.
Yeah.
One is that he really doesn't know what she's doing and he's just trying to make conversation, and the other is he knows what she's doing and he's trying to poke her until she, gives up the ghost.
Yeah, and he's the ultimate predator. He can be slow. He can ask the questions because he already knows he's in control. When he pours the two glasses a drink and he's got one for each hand, he doesn't offer one to her. He just keeps drinking. He's drinking the good stuff, and he's two-fisting it. And he sits down and he's like looking at her up and down. He's kind of like checking her out as he's talking to her. And he's like, "You know what? Tony's really, really lucky to have you, And it's like, what a creeper, man.
Oh, yeah.
Checking her out like that while he's talking to her in low, subdued tones. It's just like he's the ultimate gross bad guy at that moment. He just does a really good job of being the bad guy as an actor. I don't think he has to act too hard, to be honest with you, but so she is quick-witted and figures out a way to get out of there without getting caught, although I don't know who wrote this into there, but her cradling the thing and looking down at it while she's walking away from Obadiah Stane is not a great way to get away without getting caught, but
that's typical movie writing.
They just wanted the audience to know that when she gave the newspaper over where it was hiding, that she still had it in her hand. And then here comes Coulson. So the ultimate punchline to the joke of can't get an interview with Coulson is that no, right now, come on, let's go, and he completely saved her butt from Obadiah because he was there. If he hadn't been there, she wouldn't have got off the property and she'd be dead already.
Mm-hmm.
So let's accelerate a little because we're at 10:30 already. We're already 2.5 hours into this. So she explains everything to Coulson. She, with Coulson there, explains everything to Rhodes. Rhodes, go find Tony. We're going to go find out what's going on over at this Sector 16 in the arc reactor. We're going to find out. We're bringing agents with us. We're gonna solve this. Meanwhile, Obadiah is like stunned Tony, explained to him that it was all him, and he's a little shit, and I can't wait till you're out of the picture so that we can get back to making money, and you're not part of my problems anymore. He goes, you gave me the magnum opus, whatever, this arc reactor technology is going to save us. We'll be able to make weapons like you couldn't even dream with this. So good job. Your last act is now the worst thing that you could imagine was going to happen, but it's what I'm going to do with it. And I'm just going to turn it into the greatest war weapons you could possibly think of. Kind of like, without even realizing it, maybe it's kind of like the Tesseract weapons, the energy weapons that the Hydra guys had. He could come up with some way to make some weapons, especially with the repulsor technology. So he's all happy that he's taking Tony out.
Move though too. He pulls the thing out. So something about the arc reactor when he pulls it out, when Pepper puts it in, and Tony gets hold of it, he turns it clockwise to lock it into place. When Stain pulls it out, he actually turns it clockwise also. He should have actually turned it counterclockwise. But
Mm.
either way,
Well,
but it's a complete.
I talk it up to. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just think it's a complete dick move because he's got the thing in his hand. He's marveling at it. He's showing it to Stark while Stark's having a heart attack. Because not only is he stunned, but we also know that once that thing gets pulled out, he's in cardiac arrest. So
Yeah.
just a complete dick move to slowly talk to him about, you know what? This is going to be your ninth symphony. This is it. This is what it is. Just
Yeah. Well, so the true reveal for Obadiah's dickness and his thinking he's better than everybody is the culmination of those three scenes. The scene where he just talked down to Pepper and Creep was a total creeper. He runs to the arc reactor and gets to his engineers and say, "We got it built, but we can't power it. We don't have the technology." And he's like, "What are you talking about? Tony Stark built it in a cave with scrap parts." And he goes, "Well, I'm not Tony Stark." He was talking down to the engineer. Engineers are the ones, I don't want to hear about your problems and your equations and your solutions. Just do it. You're never going to make the top of the corporate ladder. You're just an engineer. You're just a tech. Just figure it out. And then he's like out of options. He can't power his suit even though it's ready. So now he has to go to Tony, stun him, take his reactor, and he's talking to Tony like he talked to the engineer at the arc reactor. He's talking down to him and leaning into him and saying, "You're just a little shit and you're just pissing me off and I'm taking your stuff. Good job. This is going to make me rich beyond my wildest dreams." And he's talking down to him like he creeped out and talked down to Pepper. He creeped out and talked down to the engineer. And he creeped out and talked to Tony like he was just an engineer, even though Tony was everything that made that company work. He still thought he was better than Tony. He still thought he was like superior to him.
In Spider-Man Far From Home, that was one of the ones he was talking down to. That was one of the scientists that
That was helping.
one of the scientists that was helping Mysterio.
Oh, yeah. So I know that you were saying that there's some combat scenes that make the storyline that we're talking about flow really fast, and this is where the ending is less climactic than you would think. The battle scenes that are coming up here. Obviously, the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. are starting to show that there's some really cool agents, and maybe we can have a cool spin-off series about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because they've got neat little things. Oh, is that going to open the door? And it's like, you might want to stand back. Boom, the door gets blown open. It's like, oh, really cool. And they're all men in black and they're looking at the plans for the Mark One war machine on the computer screen. And he's like, looking at it. And it's like, I approve kind of thing, or at least I get it. These are men in black guys. They're introduced. They go to find the armor. It's the same sort of power up scene where they're rushing in and Obadiah has to get it powered up the way Tony and Yinsen had to get it powered up when the bad guys were coming in. Pepper's got a good line. "Oh, I thought it'd be bigger," and because she sees the original Mark One that Tony built, and she goes, "I thought it'd be bigger." And apparently size matters, and she finds Obadiah's lights come on and gets tall and compared to where she was standing, and she screams and she runs, and agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. get taken out like they're not even there. And the battle happens with Tony and Obadiah staying in the. How's your model coming, by the way? Are you close to showing up?
Yep. I'm filling one of the. I'm filling one of the guns right now. That has apparently 3 spots for 3 of these little orange things to go into it. But there we go. So now if I push on that, it'll launch out 3 orange discs. So.
And no cats are bound to choke on those pieces.
Oh,
Yeah, which will probably under your couch and you'll never find them again.
Well, I was
All right.
I was happy I actually found that little black round piece that I launched that direction earlier, and I found that pretty quick. So at least orange is easier to see.
All right, so as you're finishing up that, we come into this combat scene that's going on. This is the culmination of Tony's character development from the entire movie. Everything that we have talked about coming up to this is Tony's fully where he needs to be. He's fully cognitively capable of handling the battle and the technology, and even the technology that Obadiah's scientists came up with. That's all going on in his head. He's not scared. He's not naive anymore. He's not alone. He's got his family, and it matters to him that his family's important. He's got Pepper and Rhodey. He's now fully complete as a character because he has those things. He has perspective. He knows that the world's a shitty place and that things are making it shittier that he has control to fix, and he's going to fix them, and he's going to live that meaningful life. He's got moral certitude. He's got that moral compass. He knows what's right to do, and self-sacrifice to stop Obadiah is part of the option plan if necessary, but he's got to stop this stuff from happening, and he's going to put himself out there. So
yeah, that was the big thing for me, is that he was ready to die to stop Obadiah.
So Todd and I were talking on Captain America about when we were talking about Captain America, where Cap has immediately in First Avenger the understanding that he might have to die for the greater good, but Tony didn't have that, and I still see that Tony does not have that in this. His goal, though, was to stop Obadiah Stane. It was not a self-sacrifice. It was I'm going to do whatever it takes to stop Obi from, from winning. So it seemed to me that it wasn't quite the heroic, I'm going to save the world by, telling Pepper to fire, as much as his obsession with just the task at hand and making sure.
I do accept that. He was out of options. I mean, eventually Obadiah was going to be able to accidentally hit him with a non-guided round because his targeting computer had been ripped out. He was eventually going to die if she didn't do something. And maybe there was a slim chance that he'd live even if she pushed the button, but at least there was a chance. I mean, it wasn't like he was diving on a grenade to die kind of sacrifice, but the fight was worth fighting, and he knew it. He wasn't guaranteed to win. He had a reactor in uh, his new suit with the old reactor that didn't have the power to do sustained flight, didn't have the power to do everything that the suit was designed to do. It wasn't going to last forever. Even when he was taking Obadiah Stane up to altitude to let the icing try and stop the what is the what is the
Iron Monger.
Obadiah's suit? What's Obadiah's suit's really the Mark One for Rhodey's suit later.
For the War Machine?
Yeah, War Machine. So I think it's really the War Machine Mark One, you want to call it. But
Okay.
Tony knew that when he was shooting up to the upper atmosphere to make it freeze so that he could have some advantage if possible because he was outgunned, overpowered, that maybe he could reach the altitude enough to cause that to happen. That could have been a one-way ticket really easily for him. He had not enough power to do it. There's no guarantee he'd have enough power to come back and land safely. So even though it was desperation, he wasn't jumping in front of a car self-sacrifice, but he was willing to go to the edge that might cause his death to stop Obadiah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see that.
So
we're still talking about his arc later, which when in Avengers when he does end up getting to that point, but in this, I don't see that he hit that point yet because when you get to Iron Man 3, he's really fucked up in the head over
Yeah.
the idea that he gave himself up for the world. So that's why I say it's not quite the same. He hadn't given in to
Yeah.
the fact that he was going to save the world by doing this. It was just more of a focused, like I said, focused at the task at hand was to stop Stain. So
Well, as much as he had a near-death experience, I think his existential panic later comes from the fact that he did everything, including the self-sacrifice where he almost died, and now he knows that they're out there and that wouldn't be enough the next time and they're going to come back, and there are things out there bigger than anything he could do even if he laid down his life. And that's, I think, more where his panic comes from per se than he couldn't get a hold of Pepper on the telephone before he sacrificed himself. Yeah, that was a near-death experience, but that ought to have emboldened him that he had the moral character to do that. But I think the panic came from the fact that it was a bigger universe than he ever dreamed, and there's no way that they're going to get that lucky next time to stop him the way they were lucky that time, you know. But anyhow, so it was funny to me, the one scene when he catches the car with the people in it, that he tries to set them down gently and she slams on the accelerator and the I'm going to protect my children thing, and he's like, "Wait, lady, wait." Oh, and he's like, "Hey, I'm the good guy. What the hell?" You know, he got run over by a car with a Karen in it or something because she was doing what she needed to do to protect her kids, and he was trying to protect them too, and she just couldn't see that these two fighting robots, one of them was actually a good guy.
right,
And I thought that was kind of
yeah, it was definitely funny.
all
So
right. So I guess the only thing left is the press conference. I think did we miss anything about character development
no,
or
the fight scene and Pepper hitting the arc reactor, like I said, it
Yeah.
wasn't anything that.
Oh.
Go ahead.
yeah? So
Obi.
Rhodey, go ahead.
Wait. I hate it when they kill off the villains. It's one of the things I always disliked about the Batman movies, especially the ones that Tim Burton started, is the bad guys always died at the end of it. And the first time the bad guy didn't die was when it was what's his face playing the Joker. The Joker doesn't die at the end of that movie, but then the actor dies.
Yeah.
Which, and I hate that because it always been a bit, 70s and 80s up until the beginning of the 90s, I collected all Marvel comics. Obadiah Stane was a recurring villain throughout the Iron Man run. I mean, he actually took over Stark Industries, renamed it Stane Industries. Tony had to start from his basement again, literally a basement in the middle of California somewhere. Build that up. He got into a fight. Stane was behind the whole Armor Wars arc, where Tony is battling versions of his armor that Stane had sold to various companies, including the government. But then, one movie in, Stane's pushing up daisies.
Yeah. Well,
I wasn't the case.
I see the temptation that they succumb to have a moment, sort of like a moment I'm going to describe here, because it is kind of a no, push the button, fry this bastard, and if that kills me, then it does. But push the button, When you ever watch the Dark Man movies with Liam Neeson?
First couple after number 2, I kind of lost interest.
I honestly think one of the greatest scenes in movie history that will be unsung and no one will ever repeat it except for me, but I'm going to repeat it, is Darkman, who's had his face burned off with acid, lost his love because of it, basically lost everything he cared about because of it. The bad guy's been a bad guy, but he's been caught, and he's probably going to go free eventually because he's so bad. He's up on his construction site. The good guy is holding the bad guy by his leg or something over the abyss that's got like construction stuff down below. And the guy's like, "You're not going to drop me because you're the good guy and you wouldn't be able to live with yourself." And he's like, "Oh!" And he like rebar city, shunk, like dead. And he's like, "I've been learning to live with a lot lately." I thought that was like the greatest ever line. So Tony saying, "Push it," I don't care, push it, it's a good way to kill him if he was going to die. I see
Yeah.
what you're saying because, I mean, all of the superheroes, Craven and Sandman and Electro, and they all come back over and over and over
Yep.
in the comics. And so not having, I mean, maybe the DC guys will get that right with the Justice League and the Doom collection of villains.
If they get anything.
But,
I have not been fond of the DC movies.
yeah, well, I'm not necessarily either.
But yeah, then we cut to him being briefed by Coulson of Shield. They've now picked up the acronym about what his story is going to be.
Shouldn't have had the acronym to begin with when they made the stupid name.
They made the name because of the acronym. They did. Everyone in the military makes dumb acronyms.
Oh, and it's had different. The acronyms had different words behind it since the '60s.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember what the original was, but Homeland wasn't part of it. It was something espionage, law enforcement division, blah blah. But yeah, and I can't remember what movie it is, or maybe it was in Agents of Shield, the series. But yeah, they're like, somebody asks, who are you with? Well, we're with Shield, and it's the blah, strategic homeland intervention enforcement, blah blah blah. And like, sounds like somebody really wanted that to spell Shield, and it's exactly what it is.
I think that might have been, Shield, the Agents of Shield. But
yeah,
I did
which
see
I need
that
to watch
as well.
I really need to watch that again. I missed that show.
Theron, this is the part where you go over all the cool Lego features of the build that you just did, because we've been doing this the whole time and not really explaining it. Why don't you tell us why this is a cool one or not a cool one?
You built a cat out of Legos. How'd you do
that? So this one came with a glow in the dark, and I tried to see whether or not it was enough light from the ring light to actually glow, but unfortunately it isn't. The only other one that I've seen so far that has a glow light or a glow disc to it is the Batman's signal is also a glow disc. But unfortunately, everything's stickers now, and I hate stickers. I put it on this one just because it's the bat signal, and why not? But I probably won't put it on the Stain armor, the Iron Monger armor. But there is a bunch of stickers that go across a lot of different things. But I don't know. It's kind of cool. This particular gun shooter has three discs in it. So when you slap down on that, those pieces will go flying. Hopefully you'll know where they're at. But since I've been making a bunch of these armors lately, as far as they look pretty close to what this was, which is one reason why I decided to do this big armor and still have it a Mech Armor Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the time they're this size for Mech Armor Monday, so there's quite a difference there. But the technique behind all of them are pretty much the same. So I thought this one was interesting. I had some cool things to it that cross beams are kind of neat too. way that they attach.
It looks good. You can you look at that and you definitely go Iron Monger.
Yeah.
You know.
It's a bit big. I mean, obviously, I mean, here's Iron Man. That's pretty damn small in comparison. So where Iron Man was actually about leg sized in comparison, he was obviously Iron Monger was a giant, but
Yeah.
But you know, we are talking Legos here, so why not have the superhero only come up to the knee or less? So, but yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, all in all, they had some good ideas on this. Um,
Yeah.
I think they did a pretty good job. It does have some movement to the legs, the foot not so much, but toes. Not quite sure why, but you can sit them on a ledge and have
Now,
your toes
what's
curl
the
around.
black box?
What was that?
What's the black box there?
This one.
No, the
No,
paint.
that's sitting on the desk in front of him.
This thing. I'm
No,
sorry.
it looks like a computer module.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not. No, it's not
Hold
of him.
on. You'll
It's
see it in a second. I pick it up in just a second, but unfortunately, now you should be seeing it picked up. This is actually just an empty crate that I'm supposed to put the ammunition in. So the extra
okay.
ammunition, like the orange and the black studs from the gun here on his right arm goes into that. So now you should be catching up on the camera
Yeah,
too.
I got. I see. Oh, okay, that's cool.
But yeah, it's it does have a locking mechanism for it, the keypad. So I don't know.
Nice.
It's I thought the way that they put the face mask on was cool too. But yeah, not too bad. I got more that are going to be that close to that size. Like I said, I got the what if. Let me show you the what if armor real quick.
Oh, so you've got the armor that Steve Rogers wears
Yep,
from What If?
yep. So
Okay.
this green armor, you'll see it in just a second when it pops up. But I got the what if green armor with Captain Carter. Then really the reason why I picked this one up, besides the fact that I like their armor sets, is it has the Red Skull in it.
Oh, it's got a Red Skull minifig.
Yeah, and
Okay,
I don't
we got
have Red Skull, so it's
we got Steve, we got Captain Carter, and we got the Red Skull. Sweet. How much was that?
I believe that one was 29. I think. I'm not sure. I'm not positive, but I think that one was 29.
That may be my toy for next month.
But yeah, I got a lot of cool Mech Armor ones for Mech Armor Monday. So I got some Spider-Man ones, and I have.
I have the one. It's not the. It's the comic book Iron Monger, and it's actually. In this case, it's the Iron Patriot. It's after he rebranded it as the Iron Patriot. It's all red, white, and blue, and it has an Obadiah Stane with hair piloting it.
That's cool.
Yeah, I built that a couple years ago.
Well, everything's good here. Do we want to call it a night for the stream? I thank you both for.
Do we want to talk about the press conference, because we didn't get past them getting briefed by Coles?
Sure.
Yeah. So he's got the story that Coulson made up for him. The only change he would have made was he would have rather had it just Pepper and him alone instead of 50 people in that could vouch for him.
He seemed a little put off. He seemed a little put off that Obadiah Stane got a hero's story about a plane going down instead of being a bad guy, but it did save his company from some bad press.
It Coulson's line about small aircraft develop all sorts of problems really cracked me up because I follow a lot of conspiracy theorists online, and one of the things they will tell you is that especially if you say something bad about the Clintons, don't take any flights in small aircraft because you will not come back. But yeah, that amused me.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was interesting also that he said we've been doing this a long time. When he was talking about I don't think Iron Man being my bodyguard is going to fly, since that's originally how they played Iron Man to be.
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, I've been doing this a long time. Trust us." I thought that was a funny callback to the original cover story.
Yeah, because that was the cover story for years before Tony came out with the whole, yeah, it's me. But yeah, it was probably, to me at least, him standing up and going, you know what? I am Iron Man. To me, that was the best part of the movie.
It was a good ending.
Yeah. And then it just cuts.
Yeah, until you get the end credit scene.
Yeah.
It was a very good, and it was still narcissistic. Because the whole conversation was where he started saying it's another thing to say that I'm a superhero, and nobody said anything about that.
And they were like, yeah, I know you said that, Tony.
But yeah, I am Iron Man.
Now, when Fury shows up in the end credit scene and says, "Do you think you're the only superhero?" Who else is he talking about?
Well, considering in 91 or 92, at this time, they haven't mentioned her yet, but eventually they do, that he had already been involved with Captain Marvel.
Okay, yeah.
Pardon me while I gag. It was just a terrible, terrible story. They should have done Monica Rambeau. Just a so much better Captain Marvel. They should have just used her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there was that. Plus, we don't exactly know when Captain America was found, do we? I don't think it was years.
I want to say it was after.
But he did know that Captain America existed, so Captain America was a superhero.
Yeah.
But Tony should have known that too, because Tony grew up on stories of Captain America, according to Tony
in Avengers. Well, in Avengers too, he's talking about that. My dad always talked about you, but you're nothing but somebody in a spangly suit.
And they know about the Hulk.
And that was my first thought, but you wouldn't consider the Hulk a superhero at this point, would you?
No. I guess I don't know how they
Superman,
because both of these basically happened at the same time.
Well,
did
Hulk
came out
at the same time as Iron Man or Iron Man 2?
No, the Hulk came out 2 months after Iron Man came out. So
okay.
But yeah, I don't. Other than Captain Marvel and anybody else, Ant-Man, that they eventually, because Ant-Man and Wasp,
the original Ant-Man and Wasp.
I'm not sure anyone ever considered him a hero. He's more of a scientist than a hero, unless you mean the original Ant-Man.
Yeah, the original.
Where Ant-Man and original Wasp were stopping rockets from blowing people up, and
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, from the 70s, was it? Is that what he said?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah. I was just amazed that he was able to get the better of Jarvis. I don't care what shield abilities you have. Jarvis should not have gotten taken out by anything that Nick Fury could have thrown at him.
Well,
So
who do you think supplied the, through the black budget, who do you think supplied all the tech to S.H.I.E.L.D.?
I still don't think he would have allowed having an anti-computer
An anti-
software that would have
Well-
been able to beat Jarvis.
whether it's based on future knowledge of the future episodes, Nick Fury was watching Iron Man for his father for years, waiting for him to be old enough to receive the package that he'd left him to give to Tony. So he may have been when Tony says, "Hey Jarvis, let's just keep this on my personal server for now." At the Nick Fury spy level, they may have already been within his security protocols back then, watching what he's been developing and working on all along, keeping his distance, but keeping track the same way they kept their distance of the Hulk and let him do what he was doing until they needed him. I mean, just because he thought he was on a secure server and he was able to hack S.H.I.E.L.D.'s tech, doesn't mean they weren't able to hack his tech,
That's true. And, was Natasha the first, we're getting into the second movie now, but was she the first person that S.H.I.E.L.D. sent in to keep an eye on Tony? Probably not.
Yeah.
That
who
seems to
knows?
be their MO. They sent Carter's niece to watch Captain America,
Yep.
Well, CIA sort of did, but
No. The Shield did. She didn't join the CIA until after Shield was outed as
Disbanded.
being a Hydra front. She joined the CIA at the end of Civil War. All right.
And then went completely dark side.
And then what? I'm sorry.
She ended up going completely dark side. Have either of you seen? Yeah, you guys have seen Falcon and Winter Soldier, haven't you?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite happy with the fact that they made her turn out to be crap. I can't remember the guy's name, the character's name.
Yeah, I can't think of it right now either. But it was a surprise. It was a shock when that happened. But
And it's too bad too. But I guess because they weren't gonna go any further with Steve Rogers and her, since he had gone back in time, I guess what else were you gonna do with that character but make her that character? Crap. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. Well, we got the 3-hour mark. We're at 3 hours and 7 minutes.
and I'm still kicking.
That's a good thing. Anybody have anything last they want to say about this? Or are we good?
No, I think we covered it. I hope I didn't do all the talking. I did do a whole lot of watching this movie and coming up with some of these theories about these epics within the episode, and I hope I didn't do too much talking.
No, you covered a bunch
No,
of the
no,
ones
no.
that I covered too, or that I was going to cover too. So, yeah, because I've got 10 pages of notes on the movie. So it's I appreciate that you did that so that I would be able to focus on the build. So thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so this being the crossover for Bricks and Flicks, that means that this is Bricks and Flicks number 5. So now I've got a bunch of those, and this is the third Mech Armor Monday. So I appreciate your participation, gentlemen. And anything last that you want to say, and we'll call it a night.
For the first true Marvel movie, it was pretty damn good.
Favreau did a great job.
Yes.
If it wasn't for him, there would be no Marvel movies. So I mean, he's definitely
And he did, he did a good job on Mandalorian too.
until they screwed up Mandalorian season 2.
Well, Favreau's a true believer, and you
Yeah,
need true
yeah.
believers to make true believer movies.
Yeah, I'm curious as to whether he sold out or if he just got overruled by Kathleen Kennedy. But,
Well,
but anyway,
yeah.
So
Victory.
All right.
victory it is. All right. So thank you for staying with us this whole time, and if you like the content, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of it, hit the subscribe button. If you want to know when these things are going to happen, hit the bell, and you will be notified. I appreciate your time and effort, gentlemen. Thank you again, and we'll